I'm Dan McDermott. Glad you could join us here for Google Plus Week. Quick note, if you'd like to be notified when we go live, when we put the live player up, please let me know, and I'll add you to a circle. That's opt-in, so only if you ask will you be notified. Anyway, thank you so much for being here tonight, and it's been a good week, much better than last week. And we have a lot of interesting things that have happened, some new features and some little controversies and things and some debate. So to kick off the show, I'm going to bring Mr. Alan Furstenberg in. Alan, always a pleasure, from New York.
Dan, it's always great to be here.
In fact, real quick, let me do this. Let me do a quick round robin with the panel. We, of course, as I said, we have Mr. Alan Furstenberg. We have in Rochester, New York, we have The Wrong Mouse. We have Anthony Klauser. In Lynchburg, Virginia, we have Mr. Bruce Turner. Bruce, welcome, with Tech and Coffee. Craig Shipp is joining us from Sarasota, right, Florida?
Yes.
Often in Frederick, Maryland, where he runs Frederick.com. And we have M. Monica, and I forget what town you're in. You're in Texas, right?
No, Colorado.
Close.
Yeah, Colorado, the other Texas.
Big state. Big state. Michael Banks joins us from Augusta, Georgia, home of the Masters tournament.
Yes, sir.
Michael Ellis is here. Again, I forget what town.
Lincolnshire, Illinois, at the moment.
Awesome. Pam Azure from California. And from Utah, and proud of it. Merry Christmas to Sheila Dubois. Awesome.
Yep. Hi. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so back to Alan. I remember when they made a big UI change. I think it was right after Guy Kawasaki wrote his book. And it was this wonderful book, popular, 5 stars on Amazon. And then, like, immediately afterward, they changed everything. And there was a WhiteSpace meme. It was hysterical. What can you do with the WhiteSpace? So what I'm referring to...
big controversy about the WhiteSpace.
Yeah, what I'm referring to is on the right side of the screen, there was this blank space, and people had a cat and hung bacon up there. It was really funny. But that was by design because, they're going to fill it, right? And so they're starting to. So let's talk about this. There was a little bit of debate about this today. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the big thing that we've been seeing over the past few months, more and more stuff has been showing up in the whitespace. When events rolled out, we saw that event notifications started showing up there. Now that communities have rolled out, we've started seeing the community, suggested communities are there. We've seen suggested users over time. We've seen a lot of different things show up. This week, we've started seeing quite a few more things showing up there. And I started calling this the invasion of the whitespace. So, for example, we're now seeing the birthday events, the birthday notifications, which we had previously seen only on the search results page. That's now started to show up in the whitespace, and a lot of people are glad to finally see it there. I've gotten some messages from people saying, hey, I've been getting these notices suggesting that I send email to people inviting them to Google+. How long has that been showing up? And I said, well, in some form, it's been showing up since day one. Yeah. But we haven't seen it for a while, and now we're seeing that today. And it's funny you mentioned Guy Kawasaki's book because within the past week or so, we've started seeing some posts showing up, some things showing up. Let me put it that way, suggesting that people go take a look at the book because it's a great resource. So we've seen all of these things have started to creep into the white space. And Google's saying that this is stuff that, is there to help people engage with Google+, learn more and engage there. What do you think about this, Craig?
For viewers, can you define the white space just for viewers that might not be aware of what you're talking about?
Sure. Basically, if you're looking at your home stream, there will be, and you have a sufficiently large monitor, where large is most modern monitors, there's a gap of nothing, of space, of territory in between where your stream is located, heading off towards the right as you're looking at it. And depending on how large your monitor is, all the way on the right, you're going to see a list of people that you can chat with, a chat widget. But in between that chat widget, or the edge of the screen, and your stream is the white space. And this is where you're going to see things like trending topics.
Now, this is to the right of your profile picture? Is that what you're talking about? That
No,
column?
this is to the right of your home stream.
Okay, so you've got your home stream, and then you've got the column with the profile picture and
Your profile picture is not there.
circles.
I don't know where you're getting your profile. We're not talking about your profile stream. We're talking about your home stream. Click on the home button, and you'll see streams of... Okay, let's start with this, Craig. You know that when you start up and you go into Google+, that's called your home stream.
Yeah. And now it has a stream, and then it has You May Know, and it has these other things inserted in here.
It's got a bunch of stuff that varies from time to time. So it may have users that it's suggesting to you. It may have communities that it's suggesting to you. Frequently, it has the trending topics list.
Maybe
Now
you could
it's
screen
adding some other
share,
stuff
perhaps
there.
a visual aid.
I
Okay.
cannot at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So-
Maybe I can.
So,
No, I cannot at the
but
moment.
like you said, if you have a wider monitor, you're still going to have a lot of white space between even that column and the column all the way to the right where it's going to list people you can chat with.
Right.
That's
Bruce,
correct.
I would.
Okay.
Yours
Go
is
ahead,
pretty
Pam.
blurry. I was just going to say Bruce's page is pretty blurry, but he has it up. But once I click on it, it's too blurry to see, to read.
But on Bruce's, you don't see much white space. Its monitor must not be big enough to show.
I've got a 22-inch monitor. It's
Yeah, but I think what they're talking about is previously you had even more white space because
Oh,
that
correct.
column to the right of the video
Obviously.
there was not there at all.
right.
No, the stuff was not there. I mean, there was always something there in some form or one form or another, but they weren't filling up the entire screen, and now they are.
Gotcha.
Take a look at mine.
Yeah.
It shows a lot of white space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good,
but
okay.
that's gonna stay there. That's not changing, correct, Alan? That
mean the-
white space that he's talking about is going to stay.
Well, we don't know. I mean, that whole column is what had been referred to as the white space column, and we thought they were going to be filling it up as much as they could. So we don't know what they're going to be doing there, to be perfectly honest. You know, as usual, Google does not reveal anything to us.
Yeah.
What kinds of things are people seeing arrive in it? I haven't seen anything yet.
So
Well, I mean, even in, you're showing right there, the community invitations is something that's relatively new. People
Oh.
are seeing birthday notices showing up in there.
So Michael, the space to the right of that column that's in the center of your screen that you're sharing,
Yeah.
that white space to the right, there's no indication at all that they're planning on putting anything in there.
Okay.
The white space that Alan's talking about is that column of information that's to the right of the
Right.
screen.
Yeah.
the-
Where Dan McDermott's invitation for the Hangout shows up.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
That-
my browser's not maximized for that purpose. I don't need to see that white space. I use fences, and so I have a nice big monitor. I just don't have my browser maximized.
Ah, okay.
Right, that entire column is generally referred to as the white space column, simply because that's what it started out as, and they've been slowly putting stuff there. Who knows if they're going to start putting more stuff there if they detect you've got more white space still that it can be filled up with.
It changes too.
Yes, it does.
And
So, yeah,
odd.
and this whole debate was not really about the white space, but if you go to this actual thread that has 283 comments on it as of now, it was really sparked off not by the white space. It was titled "Say Hello to the First Ad on Google Plus," and basically it was this ad for Guy Kawasaki's What the Plus book, which is offered as a free download to users who might make use of it, which sparked a lot of debate in the stream today.
It sparked some debate in the stream today. The link that I actually have in our show notes this evening is to Ronnie's post about it from earlier this week, which is where he first discovered it, and I'm not sure if that's the one where Vic Andotra replied to him about what this thing is, this widget is. But the general gist is that Google's take on it is that this isn't advertising, this is help
Right,
for new users.
which is
And-
exactly how I see it, but I also don't see it as very effective help.
Well, and go ahead, Monica. I think we're in agreement on this one.
Yeah, I think we're in exact agreement. Once again, like, this is not help targeted at the people who actually need it. The people who are going to end up downloading and reading an ebook are not the people who need the help figuring out Plus in the first place. If you are smart enough to download an ebook, you are not the one who is struggling with figuring out Plus in the first place. But I feel I am preaching to the choir because we are sitting here on a show talking about Plus. And if you are sitting here watching the show, you have already figured out Plus.
Pam, I see you laughing. What's so funny here?
She's absolutely right. I mean, you know, I could turn, when I first started Google Plus, I could turn on my computer, I could log in, and if it was easy enough, I could install a program. That's it, right? Oh, I can plug in a USB port too. That's it. I don't have any special tech experience or whatever, and I figured it out. I don't need a freaking book.
I think my biggest issue with this is one that I've said over and over, so you get to hear it again tonight, is that even if this is good, and it is a great book, don't get me wrong, I think it's a wonderful book, but even if it is, I think the method of delivery is a bad way. Just like the method of delivering the suggested user list is a bad method of delivery. Just like the method of doing a lot of things is a bad delivery.
What's a better way?
What's a better way?
Yes.
A better way would have been to deliver it in an appropriate fashion into the stream.
That's not an answer.
I think it's a much better way.
Yeah. Well, their number one
What would
priority.
be the appropriate way, though? I don't want it coming into my stream.
Well, that's the thing. It shouldn't be coming into your stream. It should be coming into new user stream.
That's right. Instead of the suggested user list, let's have a suggested user guide.
Or even a suggested user circle that shows up in your stream if you ask for it as a new user. And the reason why this is better is for two basic reasons. One is it delivers it to you. It's handing it to you. And two, it's teaching you how to use the stream. It's teaching you why you want to use the stream, as opposed to giving you this concept of, oh, I've got to go somewhere else that has nothing to do with Google+. I've got to step outside of Google+ to learn more about it. Instead, this is a more holistic way to teach you how to use this system.
Yep. And I'll tell you why people spend hours and hours on Facebook, but they don't spend hours and hours on Google+. It's because they come to Google+ and they see like people posting stuff and they look at it and they laugh at it and they spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes here, but they don't engage and they don't interact with their own friends and family because they're not here. And because from the start, Google has not focused on helping people connect and manage their circles. Circle management has never been a priority.
From the very start, they didn't even focus on families. You couldn't even bring the family over because the whole family couldn't come over. So from the very start, it was anti-family. It was all just geeks and people that invited each other and techies and so on.
Craig, where do you
even
get that
people
from?
who know how to manage.
You couldn't bring the family over in the beginning.
Sure you
could. It was
could.
18 and up. It was 18 years and up.
Okay, my family happens to be all greater than 18, and I know several people who lied about their age, but
I wish they had kept it 18 and up.
I disagree with you there, Pam, but
but you're not going to take on Facebook.
Limit.
Pam, you're not going to take on Facebook if you do it that way, and that lost them a lot of ground because they couldn't get the families over here.
It wasn't developed for
We have this comment from John regarding the ad. Don't see it as an ad either. Kind of crappy way to offer help. The book's been updated, hasn't it? Yes, the book has been updated, but I agree with John. It's a lousy way to offer help. In fact, what I find most surprising is that they do have help. They have a reasonably good, if somewhat incomplete help section. Do you know where it is? Does anyone know where it is? Does anyone know how to find it? No! Nobody knows how to find it.
I don't even know how to report problems anymore. And I've been on here since like day one. Like if I have to go report a problem now, like they've changed it so many times, I just give up before I even report a problem nowadays. I don't even know when feedback hangouts happen anymore. I'm like, I can't even be bothered.
Okay, let me get into this here. I think you guys are expecting everything to be all things to all people. And not everybody likes Madonna. Not everyone likes Reuters. Not everyone likes the whatever community. Not everyone likes Tech and Coffee. Not everyone likes this show. But what they do is, so many people came on in July, 2 Julys ago, set up a profile, put a picture up, posted once or twice, and left. A lot of us have stuck around. But what they're trying to do is get the non-tech geek on, and they're getting better at it, and the numbers are very impressive. But
if you believe their numbers.
But I don't think there's anything
here's where
wrong.
I have to actually question.
I don't think there's anything wrong with them. If the book isn't really sellable in the original form because the UIs have all changed dramatically. But the general, how you can use it well and techniques and stuff, and I just got it and I'm gonna read it. But that was reviewed very favorably. I think Oleg talked about it. He said it was a great book. And it's got 5 stars on Amazon with a ton of, I think, 162 comments or reviews, and it's 4.5, 5 stars. So that, by that measure, it's a great book. So if he wants to give it away, and Google wants to, just like they highlight Reuters, they've highlighted you, Monica. They highlighted Carter Gibson. They highlighted me. They different people, and it's flattering. But if they think something's interesting to a certain number of people, then they highlight it. That doesn't mean everyone's going to like me or like Carter Gibson or like this book or like Reuters. But I don't think it's a bad thing. Why is it bad?
Well, I think it's the reason why it's bad is because it's not a very plussy way of doing things. It doesn't inherently help people learn how to use Google Plus any better.
I think it's a placeholder until they actually get something to make.
The plussy way of doing things is to tell math jokes. I mean, for men, so they're trying to expand.
Plus is a failure. Then Plus is a failure, and they should give up and close up shop.
Been a great show, guys. We're done.
No, Dan, if we're saying that Plus is inherently geeky and it's only going to appeal to geeky people, then they need to close up shop right now and start over again.
They're a victim of the way they started. First of all, it's gotten a lot better. It started out with Google engineers, and then they would invite their family and their friends. So it started out with primarily male engineer types and grew from there. So that's how it was defined. Facebook started out in a college. MySpace started out because they wanted to have a way for bands to connect with their fans. And each of those social networks kind of had that personality in the beginning and then expanded from there.
You're all missing out on a core group that also was in the early stages of Google Plus.
Photographers. And they focused a lot to cater to them. The picture viewing
but
and
it's
the
a
ability
very, 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 very small percentage of photographers. Just like
but the fans. A lot of the people enjoy the fans.
They brought most people.
But it's a niche. It's a niche group of photographers that are into this. It's a very small number. I mean, there are millions and millions and millions of photographers. But
many of the world's greatest photographers are on here.
Google Plus, so it's a small percentage, just like everything on here is a small percentage.
Okay, last comment, and then I got a question. I want to pose a question to the panel. Go ahead, Michael.
If you look at communities, the highest number of members in one community is the photo community.
And how many members is it?
Last I checked, it was like over.
It's at 14,000, I think. I don't know, maybe 20.
Okay, and how many photographers are there in these United States of America?
Craig.
That's a good question.
It's a very small percentage.
Craig, how many photographers are there on YouTube, and how many in the YouTube groups? Sorry, not the YouTube groups, the Facebook groups.
I don't know. I don't pay attention to Facebook groups, but I can tell you. I can tell you there are a whole lot more photographers on Flickr than there are on Google Plus.
No, actually, Flickr has been. They've had issues with their photographers, and it's part of because when Yahoo bought Flickr,
there's a whole lot more on there than there are on Google Plus.
There's some great tech writing about Yahoo and Flickr. If you want to actually Google that, you could come up with some great tech writing articles about.
I use Flickr.
Yahoo.
I don't need to read an article about it. I use it.
Craig, forget Flickr. Nobody cares about Flickr. How many people are on 500 pixels?
What?
I don't know.
How many people are on 500 pixels? All of the photographers are on 500 pixels.
All of
Get me numbers. Compare the numbers.
Not all of them.
Don't.
All of them. At least have an account.
No.
Craig, don't stop. Don't just BS with numbers until you come out with numbers and do actual comparisons. What are the real conversion rates for any group into any particular community? And you got to look at all of them if you're going to do that. So go look at things like 500 pixels.
Even
Tell me where
500
the conversion
pixels
there
has
is.
a small percentage compared to Facebook. Everybody's on Facebook. All right, that's my point. All of these others are small verticals, small percentages.
So then go, but you're then saying, okay, so we need to compare something that was not a vertical that we know is small and still starting up, and then you're saying, but nobody's there. So you're creating a tautology.
Google needs to figure out a way to get everybody here.
They're freaking working on it.
All right, that's
so
good.
basically, one thing that Google has is they're almost there. One thing that they need to work on, and that is essential, is, and that Google constantly forgets, is that Google is structured of people who make up like the top 2% of the population in terms of intelligence and in terms of like knowing, how,
There's
knowing
an awful lot
mechanical
of
engineering.
There's a lot of stupid people here, Monica. I disagree with you on that one.
No,
Okay,
but still, when you look at the user base, like, and you look at like how we're inclined and like how we know how things work, like maybe we may think we're stupid, but in terms of like, you look at Facebook and you look at the rest of the internet, you look at like, we are so far above that.
Okay, let me go to Bruce for a comment.
We still need to make it much more simple.
Bruce?
Like, keep it simple, stupid. You know what I mean? Like, I could have said it a different way.
Bruce,
But
you got
why?
a comment?
Yeah, George Cozy, and who better to read this than me, right? If we characterize a platform by the people who started it, then Facebook is a network for hormonal virgin students who hope to get
That's probably still accurate.
It's funny with Bruce reading it. And your screen's all blurry, which is unusual for that app. Is it blurry for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he's probably having some bandwidth issues.
Okay, I got a question for you guys. I have a question, and I want some specific suggestions. You are in charge of Google Plus. You are Vic. What would you do? We know that the male tech geeks and some female tech-oriented people are here. Photographers are here. A lot of the people are not, and Craig is right. A lot of people, are still on Facebook, and they came here. They didn't find anything compelling. I want to get an idea from each of you fairly quickly. I'll start with Sheila, and we'll go down to Alan. I'll start to give you an example of what I'm talking about, a specific idea. What I would do if I were Vic for a day, besides I'd buy a bunch of stuff because he's loaded, I would get a few people to look for really good communities that actually have really good posts, rate people, come up with an algorithm where you can see if different people are engaging, that kind of thing. And they have algorithms like that. And then when someone signs on in Augusta, Georgia for the first time, right? Someone suggests it, he goes there. You can still suggest Madonna and whatever, and Lady Gaga and the different pages and the mainstream communities and stuff. But also find local users in your town who are posting and posting good content and getting good interaction with people. Use the data that they have. They know that I like to news and tech for my Google searches, right? They have that data. So why not use that data and know that you're constantly searching about quilting, and then if there's a quilter page or community, highlight that to that person. Because they've got your Google ID, why not use that data to be relevant in the suggested things? That's what I would do. I would find things that are relevant to your previous history, and find out things that are local that would be interesting to you. Like if there's a vibrant Augusta, Georgia community with local people posting about Georgia, this would require some human involvement to see what's good. And then highlight that to one of Michael's friends who comes on for the first time, so they find something that's relevant to them in terms of geography and in terms of topics. So let me go to Sheila and see, Sheila, what do you think? What would you do if you were queen for a day of Google Plus? What would you do what would you implement to try to get some of these folks who are still sticking with Facebook and just came here and didn't find anything interesting? What would you do?
Oh, gosh, put me on the spot.
I don't know.
I gave you a 90-second warning.
I like your idea, but I'm still not sure.
All right, well, if you think of something, we'll go back to you. Pam, what would you do? You'd have more thongs. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thongs and hairy men, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that I would do something similar to what you said, but maybe have a what's hot type of thing that's more relevant to you. I can't imagine someone signing on to Google Plus for the first time and having never used any Google product ever. So they've already got an idea of a person's web habits and stuff like that. And I think that they might be able to customize a suggested followers or suggested circle that's more up your alley, so to speak. So that's what I would do.
Interesting. I wonder if they could have an algorithm that would come up with a circle of people based on geography who are in good standing, who post fairly frequently, who get +1s and shares, and then they could simply look to make sure it's not all porn or something and sort of create an Augusta by default. An algorithm would create a circle of Augusta people, for example. Okay, Michael Ellis, you're in charge of Google Plus for a day. What would you do to get some of these folks who just don't find anything compelling here?
Well, I think your idea is a good basis for a beginning, I think. But this strikes me as really just about fundamental marketing. They're not going. I don't see any way that they're going after the market where the consumers are. I don't see any real spread of the pursuit of Facebook users.
But that's not, Michael, I got to disagree with you. Their ads are fantastic. That ad with the little girl who says it's dressed like a President Day, and she's like, what? She's late for school, and she tells the mother, I'm supposed to look like Martin Van Buren. They're supposed to leave in 10 minutes, so she cuts some stuff up, and the Muppets, they've done some fantastic ads. But look at how many people how many profiles have you seen when you look someone up, you found them, and they signed on in July 2011, and they posted once or twice.
Dan,
they put a picture of nothing.
These ads? Dan, where did you see these ads?
I've seen them on television.
That's not what he was talking about. He was talking about Facebook.
They run all kinds of ads. I don't think Facebook would allow them to advertise, Craig.
When it's my turn, I'll give you how.
I imagine, yeah, as I would expect. You're not on the panel to be a yes man.
We're not getting enough marketing drive for this. I will say the community managers that we have, and I don't mean communities manager, I mean the Google community managers that are out there that are helping with various topics. I think that's a home run idea. I just want them to do a lot more of it and be a lot more engaged.
Do you know, are they as active? I know they're active with everyone in here, right?
No.
Do they respond to everybody? Like if you have 6 followers and you don't know what you're doing, if you plus
no, they don't have near enough community managers to respond to the level.
They're non-existent for all practical purposes.
Yeah.
They're not in the early days, they used to do feedback hangouts, but we don't see them anymore.
I invite them to all of my shows. None of them ever show up.
They shuffle you to Google Plus Help now. In fact, they will state specifically, "Oh, please don't tag me. Tag Google Plus Help because that's where we want you to."
Well, Google Plus Help are the community managers. That's basically all of them sharing one page to respond to. So they
and that's fair.
So they don't
how many times do you see them tag Natalie and Vic? In that comment stream, Pam, I mean, what was it, like 12 times? Poor Vic. And then that means when you actually want him for something, if you have 1,000 mentions every day, I mean, come on, that's crazy. They'll tag like 17 Google people in one thing over some little tech support question when they should be going.
But then again, this is the heart of the matter. This is their platform and their baby, and if they want to know what's going wrong with it, that is the comment stream that they should be reading, and this is the show that they should be watching, because this is where it is going wrong.
And they should be using the Google button to get into this show and be the 11th person whenever they hear us talking about something.
I don't want to promote.
To be fair, it is right before Christmas, and so I sincerely doubt whether they're watching.
Nobody cares about Google Plus Week tonight. Okay,
Seriously,
Michael Ellis,
although it is essential.
Were you good?
Well, that's not true.
So you think they should focus on better marketing?
I do.
Okay. Michael Banks, you're Vic
Before we go to Michael, I just want to say that we do have people who care about Google Plus Week because we've got several comments so far. So, for example, we've got this one from George Cozy who's saying that you want to bet that when everybody is here in Google Plus, we're going to complain that they came.
You know, I wanted to read that comment, so I'm going to read it again when it's my turn.
I complain now, and they're not all here.
And we also have this comment from Michael Daniels pointing out that whatever they do, it's got to be easy. So,
like the Staples easy button. Okay,
absolutely.
Michael Banks.
So Michael Banks,
you are in charge of Google Plus for a day. It's a coup d'etat. You're in the military. You know what that is. What would you do to get some more of these non-traditional Google Plus people to stick around and find, become part of our community?
Local is basically one element that would be a good way, but one thing I noticed when I was back in high school and I got into Facebook and MySpace is that they already had things that wrap people into high schools or wrap them into organizations. And, once you say you work for blah, 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 you start seeing a lot of people that work at blah, blah, blah. And, if they started aggregating the schools, colleges, and everything into a specific, I don't want to say page or community or just something that links users together, they'll be able to find people they may know, or they'll be able to get other people. And that's how I got started with MySpace and Facebook.
Okay. They could create bots and sign up for Facebook and with hot girls and befriend a bunch of people and then find out who their friends are and get them on Google Plus.
If they don't open the API, they won't.
Monica, what would you do? You are in charge for a day. You are the head of Google Plus. Heads are going to roll. What would you do to help get some of these people, some of this audience retention?
Well, first of all, heads wouldn't roll. I don't think that basically people are doing stuff so much that's wrong. It's just that I think they are focusing on the wrong aspects, and that is that they're focusing on people like us. And like I said, we are they're not focusing on the 98% that they need to get here. They're focusing on the 2% that are already here. And we are exceptional people. And I mean that in a good way, in a complimentary way, but we need to also understand the fact that we are strange people. There are not many people who would sit around on a Friday night and turn on webcams and talk to people all across the country. Think about this, folks. No, I mean, we're not losers. We are, we are weirdos in the best way. We're weirdos in the, the coolest way, but we are also weirdos. We need to understand that.
We're the ones someone calls when they have a problem of technical nature,
Yes.
I can't figure this USB thing out.
But that's why Google doesn't understand that in trying to get the other 98% of the country to be like us and come on Hangouts is not going to work. I mean, that is just, if I was in charge of Google, I would say, you don't succeed in doing that sort of thing. What you succeed in is, making a simpler platform and, reconstructing circles, keeping things simpler. When I look at circles and I look at the main page, I see a very complicated mess. And I like that personally because I'm a complicated person. I like puzzles. I like playing chess. I have a torturous, complicated mind. But most people who go over to Facebook like it because it's simple. And so what Google needs to do is they need to take those basic, simple circles, and when people sign up for the first time, their default following stream needs to be friends and family. That needs to be the default following stream, and it needs to be paged up to notify, so that when friends and family make posts like, hey, I knitted this little blanket for my grandson, you know, the type of posts that we abhor as geeks because we find them very, very boring, that it pages the normal people to see those sort of posts. Because that's how Facebook started working.
They could, along those, that's very smart. It's all about, if it's social, it should first and foremost be about people you actually already know, and then new people you can meet. And most people who are going to use Google Plus are using Gmail and have a Google account, and most of those people are in there. And I think it will suggest people from your Gmail list who are on. But and you're saying by default, it should suggest that they go into your friends and, is this a friend or a family or a coworker? And then those should be primarily, like friends first, then, or family, friends, coworkers should be by default, like far to the right on the volume slider, and the others should. That's a good. Some of that may be happening already, but that's very important.
I don't think so. Like, I know because I signed into an old Gmail account the other week that I haven't signed into for 2 or 3 years, and basically it prompted me. It forced me to sign up for Plus. Like this old Gmail, it was like, you have to sign up for Plus. And it said, like, here's your real name. We're going to force you to sign up for a Plus account. And I was like, whoa, so this is like what new people are getting forced into. And so like I almost let it sign me up for Plus to show me the experience and like, you know, show me what it was going to do. But then basically I realized it was going to like show me the what's hot list and have me follow random people.
Okay.
And like, so I think they're not, you know, like they're creating this artificial experience, but like in reality, do you want to follow like Britney Spears and like all these random people you don't know, or
there's
do you want to follow?
Yeah, there's plenty of ways to get content about Lady Gaga and Britney Spears and Reuters, but if your mom or your sister or your buddy or your neighbor posts something on Google Plus that they're not posting anywhere else, then that they have an exclusive on that content, and that should be highlighted. Awesome. Okay, so now
we have a comment following up on Monica's stuff saying, "Great point, Monica." And
and then I could go on. Like I could write my own Monica's version of Guy Kawasaki's book. Like I could have written a really long post. Like this has been weeks in the making, but you know, I don't know. I feel there's many ways. Probably.
You should do it, Monica.
This could be
You can invade the white space.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have the other comment there, Alan?
This other comment from Michael was, if you want people to come from Facebook, you may need a default community called Spacebook, to Monica's suggestion. Then they can use that community the same way they use Facebook today.
That's awesome. That's funny. If Chi were in here, he'd be laughing with us. Okay, so we've had some slight criticism of Google Plus so far. So let's go, to be fair, to balance things out, I'm going to go to someone who is going to lavish praise on all things Google Plus. Let's go to Mr. Craig Shipp. Craig, hypothetically, I know you think there's absolutely nothing wrong with Google Plus right now. It's easy to use. It just is. It's like the transmission in a Ferrari. It just works.
It's a panacea when it comes to social. It's just all that.
Oh yeah. So let me tell you, you're in charge for a day, right? You are in charge of Google Plus. You're Vic and Dotra. You fired Vic and Dotra. Kidnapped them, and you are the man. Are there possibly any changes you might make?
Couple of minor
paint
tweaks
on the walls. Yeah. Go ahead.
Couple of minor tweaks, and Michael Banks touched on it. Local is key. In addition to, of course, acquiring the areaguides.com network and using that as a tool to promote this platform, what I would do is I would find people in each community that are very active on Facebook, preferably relatively young people, maybe in college, whatever, that have a lot of Facebook friends and that are very active on Facebook, and I would approach them and offer them a job. And if they're willing to work, I would hire them and I would pay them to be evangelists for Google Plus.
Exactly.
And to recruit their friends and to have hangouts with their friends and then report to us. And I'd have somebody coordinating that with them almost on a daily basis, an actual Google employee, coordinating with them on progress and so forth. And in other words, I would infiltrate Facebook. And I would hit them so hard they wouldn't even know what hit them.
Can I ask
I
you a
would
question
hire,
on that? That's
yeah.
an excellent idea. Local community managers. Would you have to pay them? Like if they asked
Yeah.
me to be the front row community,
Yes.
what if they
Yes,
went
I-
to, okay, you
I
can
would
pay them.
I would pay them, and if they're willing to work for free, that's fine too. But I would be willing to pay them, and I would be willing to pay them handsomely if they're willing to work.
There are other forms of compensation though, right? Like you could say, like they could say to you, let's say you're in Frederick, Maryland. If they said to you, we are looking for an evangelist in Frederick, Maryland, what you would do is you would create a community about Frederick. You would moderate it. You'd answer questions from people in Frederick. In exchange, anybody in any IP address in that area, you would be very prominently displayed as this is the
Dan,
guy, and you'd get a lot of
Dan,
followers
doing
from it.
if you're not paying them and you're not hiring them, that's kind of like what they're doing now. That's just a half-baked approach that, you know,
But
I
does
would
anyone
be
think that they
totally-
couldn't find people if they said you'll get a bunch of followers, you'll be prominently
I
displayed to
wouldn't
anybody
rely
in
on
that
that.
town?
I would be totally in their face, open, saying, listen, I want you to help us bring all your friends and family and everybody you know and people you don't even know over to the Google Plus platform, and I'm willing to pay you handsomely to do that, and we're willing to train you. You're going to be working for Google, part-time basis, let's say 30 hours a week, whatever. Pay them handsomely for it, and then totally infiltrate Facebook.
They do this already in bars and big raves and stuff like that. Grey Goose and Bacardi and cigarette companies
So you're saying
and
other
stuff like that.
companies
They
do
go,
this? Other
oh,
companies
absolutely.
Two
But
things.
we don't
One,
know that we don't know that Google's doing it.
Craig, two things. One, we have this comment. Facebook recruiting sounds like a great idea. But let me ask you, you don't think there would be blowback from this? You don't think that once the press found out they were doing it, they would just splatter it all over, that Google was so desperate for users, they have to buy users?
And if I was Google, I would come right out and I would say, no, we're not desperate for users. We are helping people get over to a better platform, a better solution. We're going to do anything we can.
So they're buying users away from Facebook.
That's right. We're going to do anything.
So they're buying users away. You don't see that as the headline?
That's not what they.
I think you could compromise, Craig. I think you could. I think I mean, there is a monetary factor here. If you're in a small town, population 700, it's not worth hiring someone full time to be an evangelist there. If you're in Dallas, Fort Worth, it is. So maybe what they could do is pay like full-time people in the top media market or the top geographic markets, LA and Dallas and New York and DC, that kind of thing, and then have volunteer community managers who would be highlighted prominently. I know it would be very easy. In a town of 30,000 people, Craig, if you said
Dan,
we will feature you prominently, you'll get follow. Basically, we're going to splash a billboard up for anyone in your town.
Without getting into the minutia of who would be paid and who wouldn't be paid, basically all I'm saying is a very aggressive effort to get people to be evangelists for this platform and to get out there and hustle like you've been doing for a year and a half, like I've been doing, without getting any pay, right? And I've already said on previous shows that they should also be supporting shows like yours. They should be supporting the Hangout 10 show. I've invited them to every single show I've done. They've showed up to 0. Okay, I would be all over this sort of thing and supporting it. I'd be in the comments right now. I don't care if we're a couple of days from Christmas. This is a freaking war. If they want to win it, you fight when it's a couple days before Christmas.
When you say you have invited them,
hang on, Craig. Google has fought wars before. They fought the search war, and they won without doing what you're suggesting. They fought the maps war, and not only did they win, they decimated Apple.
That's not over with yet.
I mean, okay. Would you say they're still winning that battle?
Apple.
Do you think
Apple's
they're
approach might turn out to be a
war
better
for
approach
Hangout?
in the long run. It might turn out to be better in the long run.
But Craig, here's what I'm saying is they haven't needed to buy users in the past. You just said that they need to buy users for Google Plus, as opposed to growing them organically.
Actually, Alan,
it's marketing. That's not buying you. I mean,
they're not paying the users to come over. They're paying an evangelist, a person to help market the platform.
There's a difference between paying and there's a difference between like encouragement
And rewarding.
And what Craig is trying to say is he's not trying to say we're paying you. What Craig has been trying to say all along is he would like to see people encouraged. He's not trying to say I'd like to see people directly paid. He's said this, and maybe not in the best way, but he just wants to see like shows that he's worked hard on encouraged.
I think that it's a great idea, and we'll go to Anthony. I think it's a great idea. Whether they pay them through monetary means, like in a major city, if you want them to go to do events in a mall, or they could have teams that go around and do events in malls and show off Google Plus and give contests, whatever, karaoke, whatever.
Craig, would you be equally happy if they just basically showed up every once in a while to your show and basically said,
I'm just using that as
you invite them, Craig?
Yeah, I'm just using that as one example.
But you say you'd invite them. Do you mean you just click, you invite them in a Hangout, or you like send them a message 2 days before, say, we're going to discuss this. We'd love to have you come on and talk about these topics?
All of the above.
And you get no response, or they turn you down?
Above. They just virtually no response. I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but
Alan and I will make an effort to try to get someone.
And Dan, the fact that I have to even suggest that they do it says that they're, in my opinion, that they're not doing their job.
A lot of these are engineer types, and they're gun shy. I mean,
well, they need to hire people that are not engineer types. They need to hire sales and marketing people.
But those are very rare.
It would be nice if
the money that they can pay, they can hire them.
It would be nice if they had some vanilla, bland people who won't say anything crazy and get them in trouble, who could just regularly appear in these Hangout shows. That's a good idea too.
You go to the college, the local college, you find out who the captain of the cheerleading squad is, and you say, do you want to make an extra $800 a week? And what do you think she's going to say?
What's funny is Craig actually likes Google Plus.
But here's the thing, though. I'm an outgoing person. I don't mind
I know exactly what she's going to say
in front of a microphone. And even this, like going live on a weekly show, even I find this slightly intimidating. And I'm an extremely outgoing person. Even I, every once in a while, I'm like, this is a little intimidating.
Pam's
you
the
know
same
what I mean?
thing. Pam never does any of the shows, right?
If you didn't get arrested, Craig,
for
asking her what would she like to make an extra $800 a week?
I was going to let it go, Pam.
Craig would be happy. Craig would volunteer to be the go-between between the cheerleader and Google.
Don't you think that she would take the job?
I think okay, let's go to Anthony, because I think
if she doesn't take the job, then you go to her co-captain. My point is, you hire somebody who has a lot of friends on Facebook, who's very active, who's well known, who's well liked, and you hire them and you have them bring everybody over with them.
I think
it's not rocket science.
I think we've got some fantastic ideas, and I think we should go back and I'll do a separate post highlighting some of these in the next couple days. And let's start a conversation, and especially, all these ideas are great, but I think we should have a conversation about specifically what an evangelist would do, what would be effective. And I think Michael Ellis and Craig, because you're both sales guys, and Monica and Pam, all of us can weigh in, and we can have a conversation. Let's give them a proposal. They could do it as a test. We could ourselves find volunteers.
I guarantee you, Facebook in the early days at a lot of the colleges where they infiltrated, that's exactly how they did it.
No, they didn't need to. They didn't need to. It was organic growth. It was small, tiny organic growth where it just happened.
Well,
that's how you get people.
I'm sure that
they buy users. If you're buying users who
some things to help it just happen.
Okay,
you guys have to understand, like, and this is one of the things that they have to understand about Hangouts on Air, especially like with live shows. Like, it is so hard at all to do like even filmed, rehearsed TV, but to do live TV is so much harder.
The key, for anyone watching who wants to do their own show, the number one thing is and it takes months and months, and everyone here will agree, and we'll do a quick comment from Alan in a second, then Anthony, and after Anthony, I'm going to see if Sheila's had to leave. But the number one thing is to cultivate a panel. The reason people like to watch Meet the Press or X Factor or whatever is because of the personalities involved. And I have gone to great lengths to cultivate a panel that is intelligent, witty, interesting, and disagrees with each other.
And that's for the show that he runs the rest of the time. On Fridays, he has us. So, Anthony.
Okay. Did you have a comment you wanted to highlight before Anthony? That was relevant?
Go to Anthony.
Okay, Anthony, go ahead. Anthony, you are in charge. Since the Kodak thing didn't work out, you're now the senior vice president of Google, in charge of Google Plus.
Hey! Don't put the Kodak thing on me.
I just had to throw that out there. Just random dig. Very sad. They should have never sold the chemical division.
I heard Kodak's making a comeback.
I hope
anyways.
I'll be happy if they continue to make ink for my printer. So Anthony, you are in charge of Kodak. You are in charge of Google Plus. What would you do to get some of these Facebook types who came here and didn't find anything compelling and never came back?
Well, Alan actually already brought this comment in, but I think it's a great segue for where I want to go with this conversation. So his comment was, want to bet that when everybody is here in G+, we are going to complain that they came. Why do we need to, get this huge insurgence of users all at once? We don't. I wouldn't change anything. I want Google Plus to grow organically, and I want it to grow naturally. And I think that Google Plus is a social network that serves a demographic that none of the other social networks serve. Facebook doesn't serve this demographic. I don't think Twitter serves this demographic. If we get more users, that's great. I don't have family and friends on, and that, sometimes is disappointing. But, I'm sitting in a hangout with, I don't know, what is there, 9 people in this hangout right now, and all of these are very interesting people that I would have never met on Facebook. I would have never, ever met any of you on Facebook. So why do we need to be like Facebook? We don't need to be like Facebook. Google does not need Google Plus to be like Facebook. And even if Google doesn't need an insurgence of 900 million users on Google Plus, and they know that they don't need it. So I think that they're not. Does Google want more users on Google Plus? Of course they do. But do they feel that they need a huge number of new users every single month or week or whatever? No, I don't think they feel like that. So I think that they're trying to grow this as organically and naturally as they possibly can. And I don't think that they want to go to Facebook and pull,
they're getting tens of
over
thousands,
500 million
but
users.
Anthony,
tens of thousands sign up a day.
users.
Anthony, what do you think about the idea that Craig had about not necessarily, again, like as Craig said, not to get into the minutia, but the general concept of somehow encouraging local community managers who would set up a Rochester, New York forum and moderate it and answer questions from local people and be highlighted to anyone who signs up, or an existing user in Rochester. Hey, you should, once they verify that, they would have protocols to make sure you're legit and you're doing a good job, and rules and regs. But then you would, what do you think about that idea where you would have someone who was sort of the go-to guy or gal in Rochester, New York for someone who signs up there to make it more relevant locally?
I think in the beginning, and maybe still to this day, and I don't know specifically about this type of stuff because I don't pay attention to it. It's just not something that interests me. But I think that on a very small scale that Google already does do this type of thing, from my understanding. And like I said, they want to do it organically, and I think that doing it organically is very important.
But Anthony,
you don't want a massive influx of Facebook users, because that would destroy the ecosystem that Google has created, maybe accidentally, but they have created this ecosystem that is a very incredible ecosystem, and you don't want to destroy that ecosystem with a bunch of users that don't naturally fit in here.
I don't think you're destroying anything. There are controls.
Keep it an elitist techie group is what you're saying.
You know what? If you want to call it an elitist, then sure. Yeah, keep it an elitist.
But Monica, when you went,
I think that Google Plus will get to 900 million users or whatever magical number that you want to create. And I think that eventually, given time, at the pace that it is, carrying on at this moment, that it will at some point crush Facebook. That's my opinion. I don't think that Google Plus has a user problem.
Quick question for Monica on Anthony's point. Monica, you've got hundreds of thousands of followers, and to Anthony's point, we don't want a big crush because that'll ruin it. I think that there are controls, and you have to adjust your settings, and it is a hassle. You get people with limited understanding of the English language posting strange things, and welcome to them. They speak English a lot better than I speak Farsi or Arabic or Hindu or whatever, and it's great to have them on board. And they're trying to reach out, and maybe they don't kind of get the U.S. social network thing, but they're learning and improving. But what are your thoughts on that? Like, we don't want too many people because it'll ruin the vibe or whatever. Because you've had to deal with this.
I think that's an elitist perspective. I think it is in Google's best interest to have a very large social network, just as it is in Facebook's best interest to have, a very large social network.
I'd just like to point out that I don't think that I ever said that Google, that the user number, I don't know how I want to say this, but I'm not saying that Google Plus shouldn't get new users. I'm just saying that we shouldn't be hampering on the user number so heavily, because I don't think that it's a problem. I think that Google Plus is growing at a very steady rate, and I think that I haven't looked at the numbers in a very long time, but I think that it's growing in a much faster rate than Facebook ever did. So I don't know why we're having such a major conversation about users.
Are you a one percenter? Anthony's a one percenter.
Yep, I make $5 million a year.
Yep, absolutely. Okay.
I agree with Anthony.
Okay,
I think it's
one percenter.
Are we good to Alan to finally settle this thing?
Okay, so to wrap it up, let me bring in two comments first, and then I will introduce my own opinion. First, we've got this comment from Margie, who's talking about how tens of thousands of people leave in a week. Google Plus is boring to more regular, normal people. And then finally, this one from the Jeff Adams Society, which I think dovetails nicely with what Anthony said, and I pretty much agree with it. Google Plus should concentrate on simply getting better, then concentrate on colleges, developing applications that college students will want to use, then let it grow organically. And I would point out that when we had Vic Gundotra on the show, that's pretty much what he said. His focus is on making Google Plus better. He's not, worrying about their image problem. In fact, that was the question I asked him specifically.
And he's not afraid to proceed with caution, to not, like one of your gripes at the API. He's not afraid to do it slow and steady.
That's a good point, Alan. They might not be ready for going out and getting a bunch of people because the platform might not be good enough yet for that. So they might need to fix all the issues and then do my plan.
I would argue that the platform isn't good enough yet for that.
Well, it's not. And I think communities have shown us that
quite
there are
honestly,
still
number of
serious
followers.
Go ahead, Monica.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Monica.
I would say
finish up.
number of followers. One of the serious mistakes that people make so far is that judging the power someone has on here can be judged by number of followers. I see people here with, a couple million followers, and if you take a look at how many times their stuff goes viral, it's not actually like you can have more influence with less followers than you do with a whole bunch of followers here, partly because a lot of the people who have signed up have abandoned their accounts.
Well,
so it's more about
also, they don't deliver everything to every follower. Like if you post something, it doesn't go to all of your couple of 100,000 followers. So
and who has you turned up in circles?
Google decides who it goes to, right?
No, the people who have you in circles as well, whether they have you turned up.
No, that's what I mean. If they let's say 200,000 people have you circled, Monica. 200,000 people have you circled, and you post something to your stream, public. they don't all get that delivered into their stream. Google decides who they're going to deliver that to, correct?
Depends on what their volume setting is for you.
Do you know
what
how to
their
change your
volume setting is for you?
That's my point.
A lot do, Craig, because what happens is a lot of it, and I apologize for hijacking Alan amid thought. A lot of it is based on the quality. It's pretty democratic. When I post something that's like Obama named a friend of mine to a presidential position today, right? Most people don't care about that. I was basically giving a shout out to my buddy from the 80s.
Yeah, but Dan,
so I'll get 2 plus
Google's
ones
making
on
that decision. Google's making that decision.
No, it's democratic in that everyone sees it, but there's no art and it's boring. So I get 2 plus ones. It's just not interesting to most people, which is cool. I knew it wouldn't be. But then when you post something really awesome, I see it explodes. So a lot of it is if the art's good and the headline's good and the content's good.
All my point was, and you're validating it, is if Monica posts something to her stream and 200,000 people have circled her, that doesn't mean that those 200,000 people are going to see that posting. That's all I'm saying.
It depends if they're looking at that time.
No, Dan, let me put it this way. Dan, what is the circulation of your newspaper?
Circulation, they're right next to each other.
Give me a number.
15,000, and you get 2.2 readers per paper on average, so about 30 to 40,000 people.
30 to 40. So let's say 30,000. Okay, if there is an ad in one of your papers, are you guaranteeing that 30,000 people will see that ad? No,
but
it's the same way.
Most people,
the same way, Craig.
Most people who actually look at a local newspaper will look briefly at every page, and their eyes will be drawn to the ads that interest them. It could be the picture or the topic.
I don't think that's a good comparison at all, because I would say that my guess is the ratio is much lower. I would guess if Monica posts a typical post in her stream, and she's got, let's say, 200,000 people following her, my guess is a relatively small percentage of those people that is actually delivered into their stream.
But Craig, that's definitely true. But remember, most people are consumers. As Monica pointed out, people who do shows or post, like I post an absolutely absurd quantity of content. I've had a local girl who's a friend of mine on Facebook and in real life. We get along, like, hey, what's up? We talk and we hug. She blocked me on Google Plus because she signed up, and I post so frequently that I just totally flooded her stream, and she didn't know she had to uncircle. She's not a tech geek. She's actually a beautiful model, and she ended up blocking me so it would get me out of her stream. And we laugh about it now. Well, she does. But I just anyway. I think most people are consumers. Like on Twitter, I look at a lot of stuff. I rarely will write back and say, Reuters, great job on that story. But I'll read it, right? They have no idea I'm reading it. I think it's the same way on Google+. Most people are not into, fewer people are into publicly interacting, reacting, than people who would just get on and look. Just like television. How many people would write a letter to a show saying, I love this TV show? Most people just watch the show.
But basically also go to some of the people who have, like the highest, some super high follower counts. Go to Thomas Hawk, go to Daria Musk, click on some of the people who recently put them in circles. Just like take 10 of them, click through to their pages. And basically, what I'm saying is try to make a decision about some of these accounts. A lot of them look like they may have a Gmail account and then basically have been forced through those steps. You know what I'm saying? Where basically they had been forced to create a Plus account, they added, the most recent people, and then basically did nothing with their account. So how often do you think they check the stream?
Never.
See, yeah, and what I'm saying is so are those real accounts? Do we count those in? And so what I'm saying is take this all with a grain of salt. How many of those are to be counted?
But Monica, what I'm saying is even if you have an organically grown follower base where, and let's say you have 50,000, and there are people that you've actually met over the last year and a half, and or interacted with or whatever. Even then, if you post something to your stream, it's not guaranteed that it's going to go to all of their feeds. As a matter of fact, it's not going to. So it's pretty
Craig,
much meaningless.
Okay, so Craig, so you're saying you're raising a technical issue, and what percentage of messages do you think? Well, okay, either what percentage of your messages do you think are going out, or what percentage of people who have you in a circle do you think are receiving a message?
I have no idea, because there's no, as far as I know, there's no data available on that. And I know Facebook does the same thing, but and I hate to go back to Facebook, but I do know that I get a whole lot more interaction on the same exact content. We've talked about this before, when I post it to Facebook versus I post it to Google+.
And yet we know that on Facebook, only 15% of the people who are following you are getting it. We know that.
Do we know the number with Google+?
No, we don't. But what we do know is that number is in your hands. It is entirely under your followers' control how much they get from you.
Can the people on Facebook control it as well?
No.
No.
Okay.
Nope. In fact, I subscribe to 5 people, and that means that if they fart on Google+, I know about it. And because I want to see everything that they post. So I subscribe, and that means every single thing that they post to a circle that I'm in.
So
I
subscribe is a separate thing from following?
Yes.
Yeah, if you subscribe, you get a notification of everything that person posts.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, to wrap up this conversation, because we've spent forever on it, and Dan can now get his stopwatch out. To wrap this up, I kind of, I think Anthony's got the right angle, and I think we've raised this a couple of times here. I think Google is growing at the right pace. It's growing well. It's growing organically. They're building the tools that they need to make sure that when people come over in the future, they're going to come over and stay. Because otherwise, they're going to create this perception that I'm going to use this word, that it's a ghost town, and they're not going to come back. And I think, over and over, I've criticized Google marketing, and I'm going to do so again. But it turns out they actually do seem to have a marketing department. And the way we know they have a marketing department is because they're actually doing some serious marketing for Hangouts this holiday season. And I don't know if people have seen the holiday Hangouts machine.
Yeah, I have.
But you can now add some very specific some very specific overlays that are based on Wallace and Gromit and other similar characters from that studio.
I want it.
Well, I've now added it, so everyone can be able to add it in this Hangout now.
Why don't you put one on and show us, Alan?
Thank you.
Alan, can you wear only those teeth?
Only those teeth? Well, I don't know about that. Anyway, so they've got a video with these characters that are advertising Hangouts. They have this holiday Hangout machine. They're encouraging people to use Hangouts amongst their family and friends for this holiday season. And I think this is kind of an interesting and exciting way to do it, because they're tapping into characters that a lot of people know, that a lot of people find hysterical, and that a lot of people enjoy. And I think this is a decent first start. Is this the best set of characters they could have chosen? No, probably not. But I think it's a pretty decent set of characters that they chose. So I've got to give them credit for that. And I hope that we're going to see more like this again in the future.
Yeah.
Kind of a 20% top thing, right? That's how I don't know I think it was Chi. He said that the women love the mustaches in the Hangouts, and he said that was a 20% thing that took off. But I think that's cool. Definitely appealing for the Facebook people.
this was, well, actually, it's kind of funny. I was actually in a holiday Hangout before this went live. And I was not using this app, so I didn't see it. But I was in a holiday Hangout with some people. And one of them was over at a friend's house, and the friend kind of looked over and said, "Oh yeah, we do Skype with our family elsewhere." And I kind of pointed out that this wasn't a one-on-one Skype session that was going on. This was several people going on. And then I had popped up my caption app and was dancing some words around. And they were looking at it going, what's that? How did you do that? And I'm just like, that's part of a Hangout. So it's that sort of thing that Google is just beginning to show, to really get integrated into all of those things, that's going to start wowing people and saying, oh, wow, you can do that? I can do that? And that's going to be something that starts grabbing people.
It's a great ad that they did for this. That TV commercial.
You got to wonder just how much time they spent putting that ad together. It is a great ad.
It was an ad agency.
I think we're all in agreement.
Absolutely.
Google has nailed advertising.
Okay. All right. There is a response, an update to our first story. Initially, we talked about the title of the topic was Invasion in the White Space, and we started that at about 2 minutes into the show. There was a controversial post which got hundreds of comments from Carter Gibson, and it was critical of Google's decision to highlight that Guy Kawasaki's book, What the Plus, which is sort of a guide to how to use Google Plus from early on in the social network's history. There was discussion of whether that was an ad, and the post was Google Plus's first ad. So a bunch of people going back and forth, and my view is, it's no different than highlighting a page or a community or whatever. But some folks, were up in arms, and it kind of settled down in the stream. It's a long read, but Guy Kawasaki has weighed in on that post, and I just want to read what he said. I read the whole thread, and I'm still trying to figure out what I did wrong. What I think I did was write a good book about using Google Plus that Google decided to give to users to help them get the most out of Google Plus. By the way, if any of you want to write a book, have I got something for you to read? Ape.
That next line is a great reply.
Yeah, he says, I'm sleeping just fine, in case you're wondering. I think that was nice and classy. And I don't think that he did anything wrong. I don't want to get into this whole topic again. We've all said our piece, but I think it was nice of him to. He said he read the whole thing, and that's his thread. I didn't do anything wrong. I don't understand. And buy my new book. That's Guy Kawasaki.
That's Guy Kawasaki. That's some awesome marketing there from him. I got to give him credit on that one.
Absolutely. Okay, what do we got, Alan? What's next?
Next is some more advertising, and basically the I guess AdSense Express did. I'm not sure I have this entirely correct, but it sounds like AdSense is now beginning to offer some advertising to pages, and it's going to let page owners set up advertisements, and the advertisements will direct to the Google Plus page, as opposed to somewhere on your individual website. Not a lot of information's come out about this yet. This has only been something that's talked about in the past few days. But it sounds like this is going to let people advertise. I believe the way they phrased it is across the Google properties where you see advertising currently, and of course in the Google Ad Network. So you'll see these ads across the web as well. And I found it interesting that one of the other things they explicitly pointed out is that you're not going to see these ads. I forget exactly how they phrased it, and I can't find the post quickly enough, unfortunately. You're not going to see these ads on... they didn't come out and say you're not going to see these ads in Google+, but they did kind of say that we're not going to be interrupting your social conversations with our advertising, and that it's going to be non-intrusive, is their usual way of putting it, which is how Google Ads have always been, is non-intrusive. So it's an interesting angle on it, an interesting development, and I'm curious to hear what the rest of the panel thinks about it. Anybody at all?
Epic comment fail.
I guess a lot of people initially said that there won't be any ads, and I always said that there's going to be ads sooner or later.
But that's not what this is, Sreek. That's not what this is. The way I just understood Alan to describe it is this is a way of you placing ads elsewhere in the web and driving the traffic from those ads to your Google Plus page, and I love that idea. I think it's excellent for branding. It's a way of drawing a much broader audience to Google Plus.
You think it's excellent for branding, for sending people to a page that's owned by Google instead of to your own website? That's good for branding?
Well, it's one of the places you might want someone to land.
Why?
So
I mean, I'll be honest. I haven't yet understood why I'd want anybody to show up at my brand's page instead of my website.
Because everyone does not know how to make a website.
But Alan,
but anybody who's advertising would.
But Alan, how many people actually go to certain brand's website often? If you have a discussion going on, if you can pose questions, you can have somebody from the brand respond to you, etc. Do you want a social interface with that brand? Is the brand providing that on the homepage?
I would hope they are, either posting it on their homepage or on a related page.
How many brands do that?
Off the top of my head, all of them?
No, I think most of them do that through Facebook
or Twitter.
Yeah,
but the ones who do it through Twitter have that widget on their homepage.
Yeah.
Well, now they're going to do it through Google Plus.
Right.
Well, then they should be doing it through Google Plus on their homepage.
And Google Plus gives them a much better place for a variety of content that would be harder technically to accomplish on your own web page.
What? What? Are you nuts?
Yes.
No, really. Are you saying that with a straight face? Because my video isn't working tonight. Are you trying to tell me with a straight face that you have more control over your page on Google Plus than you are on your website?
I didn't say you have more control. I said it's easier. There are lots of people in the world who do not know how to do what you know how to do with a web page. I could create a Google Plus page and post things that are relevant to my community and do it quickly now I can use YouTube to do it as well, and I can't do any of that on a web page. I don't know how.
It's a whole lot easier than setting up
This is what Blogger is.
Oh, it's a lot easier than Blogger. It's easier than WordPress. It's easier than Drupal. Of course it's easier.
Blogger is a platform.
You don't have the same control, but it's easier. Anybody can set up a page and post to it.
And it's not just Google Plus. You have the power of YouTube behind you, and there are a lot of things.
The footprint of YouTube, absolutely.
And I'm making the argument that people are doing this now with Facebook to help them brand their businesses. And it's common. It's really common. And I think Google needs to do this as well.
It's fairly common, but Facebook pages have some major differences that Google Plus pages do not have. And the biggest one is that you have much more control over a Facebook page content than you do over a Google Plus page content.
For now.
Worlds more control.
For now. Look how long Facebook been out. Look how long they had to work on it.
Well, fine, you can make that argument if you want, but I could still make the argument that a Google Plus page has been horribly botched up. There are maybe 5 brands in the world who actually like their Google Plus pages. And you know exactly which 5 because they're the ones that Vic always talks about.
Audi,
Cadbury UK.
Does Tesla have one? Vic just got his Tesla, right?
Yeah. Tesla has one.
It's just the beginning, Dad.
Are you eating?
I love how it's Cadbury and it's only Cadbury UK.
Yeah, really.
It's not the regular part of Cadbury.
No, that is the regular part of Cadbury.
Yeah, Cadbury's a UK company.
Mike, are you eating pizza?
Oh.
What we in the U.S. think of as Cadbury is owned by Hershey's.
Oh, okay. Suddenly it all makes sense.
Mike, are you eating pizza?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. Because you always eats pizza, not an ounce of fat on it.
I thought about getting it, but I was going to wait till tomorrow. So.
Must be nice. Are we good on this topic?
Yeah, I think we're good on this topic.
All right. What's next, Mr. Furstenberg in New York?
Oh, yeah. Here's another. We've been talking about Facebook all night tonight, so let's actually explicitly mention them in a topic right now. Facebook's gotten a lot of flack with some issues they had with Instagram this week. Instagram changing its terms of service and changing it back. But I think the more interesting story from them is they've introduced, or they've started introducing new ways to manage what's essentially your inbox on Facebook. So they've given that power to you as a user, but they've also given the power to somebody who wants to send you a message to avoid all of the controls that you have put on your inbox. And the way they are doing that is they're going to charge people essentially $1 to send you spam. I think this is the most brilliant concept in the world. And I'm shocked
clear,
that nobody's come up with it before.
In their defense, before I totally trash those jerks, in their defense, you pay the $1 one time, and that gives you unlimited rights to spam the person. And they're saying it's a spam prevention device, because if you're willing to spend $1, like if someone had to, and the legitimate argument is, for every spam email that we get, and the spam controls, thank God, have gotten so much better than years ago. If they had to pay $1 to send that to you, you wouldn't be getting them.
Exactly. I mean,
so that's their argument.
Look at it this way. Do you know how much spammers, what the charge is to spammers to send you a piece of email today?
Nothing.
Well, it's a tiny fraction of a cent.
About what you get from an ad on your YouTube video.
Even less than that, actually.
I'm being sarcastic, but they pay the $1 once. If and this
I didn't realize it was paying it once.
Yeah,
but,
it's for unlimited for that person. But Alan, if
you think of it though, it's like buying a postage stamp.
But isn't this only the relevant if you've set it up to only my friends can message me, right? By default, anyone can message you, right?
Well, but by default, anybody who messages you currently has that message go into a box that nobody ever looks at. That nobody knew was
I looked
there.
for it. I couldn't even find it. It's the
nobody's sending you messages.
No, I couldn't find the box with the other box. I couldn't locate it. Talk about obscure. I mean, I'm looking around.
Yeah, it's not like Facebook's UI is actually
I mean, I'm not like an assembly language programmer, but I got some game and I couldn't find the thing. But anyway, go ahead, Alan.
No, but so basically they're saying you now have more controls. They're making sure that you know about this other box, and they're giving companies a way to buy a stamp to bypass it, which I think is brilliant. I mean, if Facebook's really smart, what they're going to do next is they're going to charge you $2 to block it. This is just worlds brilliant, and I honestly do think it's a brilliant idea.
All right, I'm going to go to Craig, but to be fair, in the interest of disclosure, I despise Facebook. I think it's an awful company. I think Zuckerberg is just the worst human being alive.
But you use it.
But tell us what you really think.
I have to. No, if Zuckerberg walked on water, I would report Zuckerberg can't swim. I mean, I don't like the guy. I think it's sleazy. I think the way they treat people with disdain, that their users are tolerated rather than, it's awful. They don't engage. The one time he engaged, I think when they had the video thing, he went in and left. It's just they don't care. They just shoot first, ask questions. They're awful. But that said, if I want to know what time to be at Thanksgiving, I got to be on Facebook. And when I want to know the latest news as quickly as possible, I got to be on Twitter. But anyway, I want to see what.
And that could be so solved if they would just fix the circles issue here.
There's
if they would
few
make your
bits
defaults.
and pieces that have to be fixed. Craig, you want to lead off on this?
Well, the only comment that I really wanted to make, and I'll give you one example of something I really hate about Facebook, first of all, is anytime I post something and I share a link, even in most cases when I'm messaging somebody who I message with often, we're not talking about a stranger here, we're talking about somebody who I have messages back and forth with often. If I share a link in that message, they pull up a CAPTCHA, and I've got to put in a CAPTCHA. I never have to do that on Google+. Okay, so that aside,
Whoa! You mean Google Plus always believes you're human? I've gotten reports from so many people who are constantly bombarded by Google's,
so far I haven't. Knock on wood. So far, every time I've posted something in my stream, almost always has a link to something, either my photos or an article I published on one of my websites. It's not like I'm always linking to YouTube or something, for example. I'm linking to other outside sites, and they do not ask me to put in enter a CAPTCHA. So far, Facebook does almost every time, at least 50% of the time, and usually more than that. But I do want to comment real quick on the Instagram thing, because this buttresses Monica's earlier point about a lot of people out there on the internet at large not necessarily being the sharpest tools in the shed. First of all, if I'm a typical Instagram user and the pictures that I'm posting, I would be flattered if somebody ever wanted to buy my photo. I mean, for them to think that Facebook is going to be able to go and sell their photo for a whole bunch of money or something, I mean, you know, talk about delusional. Secondly, if I'm using a free service and I'm using their bandwidth and I'm posting all these photos and so forth, heaven forbid that free service at some point in time want to monetize it in some way. Oh, heaven forbid this happened.
Craig, I don't think anyone had an issue with the fact that Instagram wanted to monetize it or was going to. I think everyone knew that. I think the way they chose to do it, however, kind of speaks to the fact that they really have no clue about how people view their own personal property, and that people view their photos as their property.
But my point is it news that Facebook, the parent company, is a sleazy operation? I mean, is it news that they're going to do something?
Remember, they were sued about this in California. Let me real quick interject on the Instagram thing.
Their head must be under a rock somewhere. I mean, come on, let's get with the real world. This is a sleazy operation. We're choosing to do business with them because we have to, for the most part. We don't have another choice yet until Google Plus gets their act together. So we're dealing with this sleazeball operation, and they do sleazeball things. It's like the line in Casablanca. You know, I'm shocked that there's gambling going on. I mean, this is ridiculous.
My post on this was that they could now, because this applies to their users with 13 and up, and it even said if you are, I don't know if it's 14 and up or 13 and up, but kids, it said that the same rules applied, and that it's understood that if you are a user, you know, under 18, that it's assumed your parents, you know, are aware of this policy, and this applies to you as well. So, what I posted was, if you read the thing, a 14-year-old kid could take a picture of himself, and they could license it, not sell it, but they could license it to a billboard to be on Times Square. Your kid, and I got a problem with that.
First of all, I don't think they can do that legally.
Well, I don't see a difference.
Yes, they can.
But that's the problem. This is a contract.
Let me tell you what this is.
This is a contract, and with the contract, you're explicitly saying they can.
No.
Let me get through this. Let me get through this. Let me get through this.
On January 17th, that's absolutely the case, Craig.
No, they reverted back since then. They dumped the whole.
Can't.
Listen, what they said.
You can't do that.
It says they could. If you, I read the terms. I don't know if you did, Craig, But what they said was they could license it to third parties to use the image in advertising. And Nilay Patel, I wrote that. Nilay Patel disagreed with me. He said, no, they can't. He said they can use it intact, unmodified. They're not selling it, they're licensing it. And unmodified, meaning they can take the exact picture. They can't change it, put a logo, put a mustache on you, crop it out.
They can't use it in a beer commercial. They can't use it on a billboard. They can't do any of those things without explicit permission to do that specific act.
The terms of service give them the explicit the terms of service did that.
You can't do it in a blanket terms of service.
But
it has
if they
to be specific.
Okay, listen, it isn't blanket.
They can't do it.
Well, Facebook is allowed. If you take an ABC News article, you just copy the URL and you post it on your Facebook page and say, hey, this is really cool. I did this. We had the lady, remember the lady that the judge said she's ruled that she was not a blogger or not a journalist? And we had her on the show. And there was a big controversy. And so I posted the ABC News story on Facebook, and I said, this will be my guest tonight, our main first guest on Google Plus Week. And she came on the show and we talked about it. And a friend of mine used my computer to log into Facebook and never logged out. So I opened the browser, and before I realized it was him. And then before I logged out to log myself in, I saw my picture with that Dan McDermott liked, or Dan McDermott shared this webpage. and it had my
Yes,
photograph.
but Dan, that's not taking a picture that you took and then putting it on a commercial billboard or in a commercial magazine or in a beer ad or something like
terms
that.
of use
When you do
specifically
that,
said
you
they
step
could do
over
that.
the line, and you need a separate release for that specific purpose.
Dan and Craig. Whoa.
Okay,
Hang on.
Pam.
Dan and Craig. Part of the problem is that this is true for some states. Not every state has that law. Craig
Most-
is correct.
California has the law, but
My
not,
understanding is only
yeah, there
about
was a
half of
lawsuit
them have
over
that
this.
law.
I read the term. Pam, do you?
Most of
can
the
you-
major markets, New York has it, California has it. Trust
but
me.
not all. I mean, Zimbabwe doesn't have it, and there's users there. I mean, I'm speculating,
Well,
but
you're not going to make any money there.
if they can, here's the Craig. If Facebook, the terms of service said they could license it for advertising, and you would not be compensated. And I don't care about the compensation thing. I wouldn't want a picture of a 14-year-old kid without the parents' knowledge or
Right, Dan, and Craig's point is that most state law says that you can't have a contract of this sort, and this is a contract. You can't have a blanket contract for a sweeping range of pictures. You have to have a specific contract for each specific picture executed at the time you're going to use that picture.
The argument.
That's right, and it has to outline what you're going to use it for, et cetera, et cetera.
The problem is,
hang on, I'm
isn't
going to shut up in a
universally
second. Neelay Patel from The Verge said I was wrong and said that they couldn't put it on a billboard, but I don't understand because that would be modifying it by taking the image and putting it into a larger ad. That would be modifying the image. That
Well,
they could
and
only use it.
typically
Hold on,
they're
let me
gonna put
finish.
text
Damn it.
over
Damn it.
it.
Let me finish.
Okay.
They could put it unmodified. They could share it for advertising purposes, but they can't modify it. They couldn't draw a mustache. They couldn't crop, right? So he said putting it on a billboard would be the same as modifying it. My point is, what is the difference between them putting a photograph on Facebook saying, Dan, like this page or whatever, and putting that exact same thing on a billboard? It's just the destination. If they can license it to third parties for advertising, you guys can fight it out.
Dan, from what I understand, the difference is when you use it for commercial purposes in an advertisement, that's when you're stepping over the line. When you're taking a photo and you're using it in a blog as a news story or whatever, that's a whole different animal. But as soon as you take that photo and you put it in a beer commercial or whatever, you put it on a big billboard advertising guns, whatever, that now you've stepped over that line to where you need more documentation. The photographer, the ad agency, they all need more protections so that they don't get sued to high heaven. Okay? And any of them that are worth their salt always get a specific contract about that photo and states what it's going to be used for, so on and so forth, because they do it to cover their what, because they will get sued.
Anyway, I don't
Hang on,
want to
let me real quick. Hang on, let me read this. Here's the actual wording. Instagram does not claim ownership of any content that you post on or through the service. Instead, you hereby grant to Instagram. This is the new terms which have now been rescinded. You hereby grant to Instagram a non-exclusive, fully paid and royalty-free, transferable, sub-licensable, worldwide license to use the content that you post on or through the service, subject to the service's privacy policy, in other words, stuff you post publicly, available here, including but not limited to, oh man, where is it? You, I'm sorry, Alan, do your thing. I'm going to find it and I'll be back.
Well, I was going to actually use this to start wrapping it up and pointing out that we have been getting comments on this, and one of the comments is legitimately pointing out that they're going to be rewriting the rules, and the reason why they're rewriting the rules is because they got so much flack and feedback about
Yeah,
this.
it's mainly for PR purposes that they're rewriting the rules. It's as simple as that. And
they couldn't afford to lose big companies. I saw a response from National Geographic saying, well, if you can't afford to lose big companies like National Geographic.
The lawyers are going to write these things broad, and give them all kinds of leeway. And that doesn't mean that, like Alan said, in every state, they're going to have that leeway. It might not pass muster in that state. And so each case is going to be different. But the bottom line is, there aren't going to be any Pulitzer Prize winning photos. Your odds of having that in a photo that you upload, you're better off going and winning the lottery.
Craig,
It
I don't
isn't
think
going to happen.
I don't think anyone suspected that. That wasn't people's concerns. You had concerns from two different camps. The first camp.
A lot of the things I read was that concern. They're going to sell my photo and get a bunch of money, and I'm not going to get any money. Yeah,
well,
right.
That's because you were listening to the professional photographers, the professional models, and people like National Geographic who were using Instagram to distribute their stuff, and who are now saying, "Hey, wait a minute. Here's a place where yes, I've always run the risk of someone stealing my photos from here, but now here's a company saying not only that they're asserting their right to steal my photos." So you had that camp.
It made them look
had
bad.
a lot of people who were saying, "Hey, wait a minute. Why is Google going to be using my vacation photos of my family to advertise something?"
You mean Facebook?
That's a little creepy.
Okay, real quick,
Instagram.
Alan, I've got the
What
quote.
did I say?
Here's what
Google.
Google. It's Facebook.
Instagram.
Well, people
yeah.
were worried about Google once upon a
Instagram.
time, but yeah, Instagram.
Well,
All right, let me
Facebook.
hang on. Let me read the paragraph. To help us deliver interesting paid or sponsored content or promotions, you agree that a business or other entity may pay us, Instagram, to display your username, likeness, photos, and or actions you take in connection with paid or sponsored content or promotions without any compensation to you. If you were under the age of 18 or any other applicable age of majority, you represent that at least one of your parents or legal guardians has agreed to this provision, the use of your name, likeness, username, and or photos, along with any associated metadata on your behalf. The key phrase, to display your photos in connection with paid or sponsored content or promotions without any compensation. I don't care about the compensation part. What in there says they cannot put it on a billboard, Craig?
It
Or
does
Pam.
because it's written in their favor. It's very broad. First of all, you can't enter into a contract with a 13-year-old and say, "Oh, by the way, since you're entering into the contract, you agree that your parents know about this." That doesn't hold water anyway.
Exactly.
Clearly.
That
But
is
Pam,
there's a
tell
lot
me
of
they
things-
couldn't.
there's a
Pam,
lot
tell
of
me that
things
doesn't
in
mean they
this
could
that
use
don't hold water.
19-year-olds on a billboard.
Even a 19-year-old.
It does.
Take
You-
that
they
photo.
can.
If they take that photo of that 19-year-old, let's say she's holding up a can of Slits, and they're at a bar and they're laughing, and the photo comes out good, and they put it on a big billboard and ad for Slits, okay? Guess what? She did hit the lottery now because she's going to sue Facebook and she's going to get a ton of freaking money from them and a settlement that'll probably be sealed. She'll get her $1.2 million, and the lawyer will get $400,000, and they'll all go home happy.
All right,
So
I'll
that's
say one
exactly how
last
that
thing,
story
and then
ends.
back to Alan. I'll shut up on this. But Neelay said that, I don't understand, if someone can explain this to me. He said putting on a billboard is different because that's modifying your image by making your image part of a larger ad. I don't see any difference between that and putting that exact same, taking what they do
That
on
might be
Facebook
the
and moving
technical
it to.
description.
And he's a
but,
copyright attorney, so I'm not. So,
Yes, you can't.
but
you
I still
can't-
think I'm right and he's wrong on this.
Yeah,
I just want to say one thing because I didn't get a chance to say anything throughout
Monica,
this
then
whole
Alan,
thing.
go ahead.
But basically, what this did is basically it made them look really bad because all it did was it showed that they have no respect for their users or their companies, and it just basically it threw a bunch of mud on everybody everywhere associated. It's legally dubious from many aspects.
I
It
agree.
just reinforces that Facebook is a sleazy operation, and and we're all shocked.
Which is great because I got some epic posts and a lot of traction on this. Alan Furstenberg, what's our next topic?
Our next topic is one of my favorites, which means I'm sure you're all going to love it because I get to talk about Blogger again.
Mm.
Yes,
Let me
I
get
know
the
this is
pizza.
thrilling. So we'll go through this one quickly. Basically, Blogger released an update. The update now lets you do plus mentions inside of your Blogger posts. And for all of us out there, since we're all such elite Google Plus users, we know what a plus mention is. But for those of us tuning in, basically what you can do is you can enter a plus and then start typing the name of somebody who's in one of your circles, and that name will expand. And when you look at the post later, you can click on that name and it will go to that person's profile page. Now they're adding this feature to Blogger. And honestly, I think this is a reasonably useful feature for Blogger. In talking about it in a Hangout, the Blogger team talked about how this was going to be a great way for ad hoc communities to be talking, to be referencing each other. I know that all of us, when we're talking about things that we think will be good on Google+, or when we're talking about technology posts, or when we're talking about our favorite cat pictures, we'll plus mention each other. And this creates a kind of ad hoc community around this one thing. And I think it's great. I think this is in some ways a positive sign because it means that maybe, just maybe, they will actually do some real Blogger integration into Google+. Good freaking grief! You're giving us plus mentions and you're not even letting us simultaneously post? What in the world is up with these people?
Alan, you're scaring my kid.
Well, that's my role in life.
Why don't you just do one or the other? I don't understand why you have to do both. Like Dan, I don't understand, except for Dan has ADHD, and I can understand him wanting to multitask. But, why would you want to post the same thing to all your communities, to your main page, to Twitter, to Facebook, to Foursquare, to MySpace, to Tumblr, to Blogger? Why?
That's an easy one to answer. Let me answer it, Alan. I have a Blogger blog that's associated with my craigship.com website, and I post certain things in there that I want people to read, and sometimes the same thing might be of importance to my people on Facebook, so I'll post that to Facebook. And usually I do a custom post. I don't do the exact same posting both places, but there are many times when I won't put something in my blog, but I will put it on Facebook. And so I put my content where I feel the people will want to see it, and I will put it into those multiple platforms.
Let me defend myself, since because Vic disagrees with me, and Robert Scoble, when I posted this, disagree with me. And the reason I do it is I have footprints on Twitter, Facebook, and on Google+. I'm on the Mike Elgin diet. And I originate my content on Google+ because I love this. I love you guys. I love my followers. I love my friends.
But it doesn't make you any money, so why are you doing it?
It's fun. I get to engage. I get intellectual compensation from it. Let me say, for example, this week, in this past week, I posted 12,000 things, and at least twice that I saw, I don't know how many times, Ron Fournier, who's the main editor for the National Journal, retweeted me, and he retweeted my Google Plus post, which was automatically sent to Twitter. He retweeted it, and it got like 56 retweets, and I got a bunch of new followers, new people who like my content. It was something about the shooting, and that if I had not posted that on Twitter, those 56 people wouldn't have retweeted. So it exposed a whole bunch of new people to my Google Plus post, and it drew all of them to Google Plus. And maybe when they came here and they saw the wonderful comments, the wonderful intellectual debate going on that post, maybe some of them signed up for Google Plus. So I mean, what's the harm in that?
And he'll be able to monetize it eventually, Pam. I mean, he'll.
I'm not after money. This is a money-sucking hole. This is a time-sucking hole.
Yeah, but you will.
Still,
hang on.
If I take the time to write a good post with a catchy headline, good graphic, and why limit it to here? Why would you make a television program like the X Factor and only run it on one TV station?
If you're building your brand, you're building value, okay? So in your brand, in your case, is Dan McDermott and Google Plus Week, which I think that was a poor choice for that brand. But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But
I think this is a great brand.
You're building
and this is a great show. This is one of the best shows on Plus so far.
The name is critically flawed. But anyway, it's a great show. But my
Why is
point
it flawed? It's the weekly news about Google
because
Plus.
You don't own it.
So far, this is the best.
Because Craig monopolizes
it.
Craig's a freak.
Anyway, we can talk about brands another time. But
That's not it, Craig.
The point is, you are building value into your name, Dan McDermott.
I invest in this show because it's a quality show, and I see value in it. That's why I show up every week.
That's why I do it.
Right.
I get to engage and debate with people.
Back in the form of monetization, one way or another.
Not everything.
Well, let me answer.
Dan already has my address.
Pam, let me answer your question.
Pam will get a check.
Yeah,
Pam,
that's right.
Let me answer your question. I don't think necessarily it's always about why do you want to fragment yourself like this. I tend to look at it in terms of A blog in a lot of ways is a good way to develop content, usually long form content. Sometimes a blog will have a lot of pictures in it. It's a way to create and format that media. Things like Google Plus and Facebook sometimes are a way of delivering that media. A blog isn't a great way to do delivery. That's why you had protocols underneath that various blogs would support. Google Plus is just one new way to deliver that same content. And I think in that way, that's something that should be encouraged. That's something that's good, is using Google Plus as that delivery mechanism.
And look
now,
at
there are things that the blog does that Google Plus does not do and cannot do in some ways. One of the big things that a blog can do is let you put advertising on your blog and let you brand your blog your way. This is very different from Google Plus, where everything is very much under Google's look, Google's branding, Google's advertising, which you're not getting a cut of. So
that whole rug could be pulled out from under you at any given time, and then you're nowhere. So you're right. Build your own brands.
No, they don't have a problem with my use of the name. They even approve me if I wanted to run ads to use the name in it, because we say in the beginning, we make it clear this is an unofficial show, and look at the value. For one thing, it's fun to be able to debate you guys, because everyone in here has strongly held opinions, and we all get into it sometimes. Craig also has a bong hidden under his desk, but look at the incredible people we've been able to talk to. Vic Indotra, Chi Chu, the head of Google News, Richard Gingras, Mike Elgin, Chris Perillo. All these folks.
But Dan,
how else would we get to actually engage in a debate of the issues with these people? And let our viewers submit questions that we ask live. I mean, it's a wonderful thing that we've done.
And Dan's defending himself against your accusation, Craig, which is why he's still going on.
The point that Alan is making that is extremely valid is you want to focus the lion's share of your efforts in building your own platform, your own brand that you totally control and own. Use all these other things as tools to that end, because these other things you do not control.
True,
it's just like
but
the business out there that relies on Google for all of their business search traffic on Google.
Look at Glenn Beck, who's, in my opinion, a complete nutcase, who has like storable foods and weapons in his basement for when the government comes.
Well, he claims he probably doesn't have any of that. He's just.
But he did his show on Fox News, right? Under he had to work on their platform, and then he got canned or quit, or they reached a mutual agreement, whatever. And now, despite I think he's a whack job, he has built up a very successful independent platform that he totally owns on the web, and it's got lots of I don't know, I think hundreds of thousands of people paying for his content. So that's an example of where you start out under the wing or whatever. And if CNN calls me and says, Dan, I want you to do a tech show on Sundays, I'll pay you $400,000 a year, I might consider the offer. But anyway,
make it $800,000.
But I'm not here. This is fun for me. This is, like Pam said, I'm a classic ADHD guy, and I'm like, was that a fly? That kind of thing. And what I get from this is I get to use my brain in ways I can't talking to local people, and I get to have a debate and a challenge, and we get to like have our own little O'Reilly factor on here, and that's a big rush for me because I love new things. I love news because I always want to do something different that I haven't done before and learn something. ADHD, and then I'll shut up. ADHD is a curse I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, and the greatest gift I ever received. Alan.
So we all agree that that Google is furiously messing up Blogger, and that any day now they're going to see the light and bring in some revolutionary integration.
Or they're going to shut it down. And
move
them all to Google Plus pages.
And I just plus mentioned Dan in one of my posts just to test it. It works.
So moving on, Mike Ellis raised this as a topic, and I want to get his take on it. Google made some changes to how Gmail is accessible from various other clients and programs. And one of the changes was to discontinue support for a protocol called ActiveSync. which wouldn't.
Are you
most of the
switching
world-
topic orders?
No, you forgot to label that one.
Just kidding. Okay, go ahead.
So they're dropping a protocol which they had to license from Microsoft to provide support to Microsoft's email clients. They're now dropping this. So Mike, you want to fill us more in on this subject?
I wish I could. I can't remember what this was about.
I actually gave you the link. The link is still there. You put it there. The subject was Google drops a Gmail-shaped bomb on Windows Phone.
Okay, let me just quickly grab it and remember what the
So
article.
while he's skimming the article,
Explain what it
quickly,
is in terms that ordinary Americans could understand.
Basically,
Yeah.
the way that your email clients communicate with servers is through various protocols, and there have been some historic protocols out there called POP and IMAP. Over time, various companies found these incredibly lacking. And these were public, open internet protocols, the same kind of protocols that you find on the web that made the web popular. These are their equivalents for email. Microsoft, not being, having never seen a standard that it didn't think it could improve upon, came out with its own protocol, which admittedly does a lot more than just synchronize email. It was called ActiveSync. It's incredibly popular. Their Exchange server totally relies on ActiveSync. And all of their email clients that they write rely on ActiveSync. So in order for anyone who used to be using a Windows phone, in order for anyone who was using a Windows phone to be able to communicate with Gmail, Google needed to license the ActiveSync protocol from Microsoft, which after some extensive negotiations, I understand that they did. Google is now saying that for a certain set of customers, not even for all of their customers, but for a set of customers, they're going to be discontinuing that support.
So the
Mike.
impact is what customers affected, Alan?
Mike, do you want to?
Well, I think it means that customers that are using Windows 8 phones, won't be able to sync with Gmail. Is that how? That's the way I understood it. Is that what?
That's pretty much. It's not even just Windows 8 phone. It's any Windows phone that was using Microsoft's mail client.
Okay.
So it's not just the most recent. It's historic ones as well. And I believe there are some clients for iOS that are using ActiveSync, and those will no longer be supported against Gmail.
Yeah. So it'll still be supported, but only if you're using Gmail as your email client would you have a problem.
No, if you're using Gmail as a client, if you're using Google's mail client, you won't have a problem because you're going to be using Google's protocol to do this.
Right. So it's the Gmail server side that you can't sync with.
Right.
Okay.
This is probably not affecting a massive number of users, but this is seen as kind of retaliation for Microsoft. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Well, I'm not surprised that we're seeing this because I think it's about, well, maybe they've been doing it, but it's about time that they fight back harder, in my view.
Microsoft is lying. They are sleazy liars with this fairsearch.org thing and these nonsense that you're getting scroogled or whatever. Microsoft is I'm such an admirer of Bill Gates, but I just can't. You know what? We use Google because it's better. If you want to beat Google, don't litigate and go to the government and try to regulate someone out of business.
And
build
frankly,
a damn better search engine. And Bing sucks compared to Google. They're good at some things. They're nice. There are times when I get frustrated on Google and I'll try something on Bing, but once a month. But give me a break. This is not this fairsearch.org thing is a ridiculous lying propaganda nonsensical BS machine. Pam.
Michael first, then Pam.
Actually, since Google screwed with their algorithm, searching certain things are very difficult on Google Search now.
Especially when you're preparing your Thursday posts. When Pam's preparing her Thursday lineup.
Yahoo works very well. I just click the button saying yes, I agree to allow this content, and I get all the results I want.
On Saturday Night Live, they addressed this because what Pam's referring. Can I say what you're referring to?
Porn.
Yeah,
Yes.
they adjusted their algorithm, so you have to be Saturday Night Live. When they do the news, the fake news show, they said Google announced that they will make it more difficult to discover porn on Google. That you'll have to be more specific with your search requests. Porn users responded, "No problem."
It actually is a problem because even if you're very specific, you still don't get the content that you were
Could
getting.
you perhaps provide an example? No, I'm just kidding. Maybe a screen share. I'm sorry. We don't want to get banned from Google.
Right.
All right. Anybody else? So.
And I've been drinking, so you probably don't want to go down that path, right?
No,
Right.
we're good. We've seen you out of
We
control
can
before.
assume that it's thong related.
Yeah.
However,
But
Dan,
the
one
specific
thing I would
subset
add-
of thongs.
we're just gonna have to. I guess we're gonna have to just let our imagination.
Hairy
take it from
Brazilian
there.
thong-wearing men at
Hey,
dusk.
before we get too far off topic, I want to hear what Mike has to say.
We're
Go
pretty
ahead,
far off
Mike.
topic.
Yeah, that took us pretty far afield.
I can only imagine the transcript of the show when someone gets to that part.
Yeah.
We'll have to add a whole new
My
topic.
point was that and this is really why I originally posted the article. I think it's about time that Microsoft got their comeuppance on the way that they are so proprietary on everything, and when they could have adopted open standards and integrated everybody to make a nice harmonious world, and just won because they're better, which they're not. But had they done that, I wouldn't be angry with them, and I wouldn't have this vendetta against them, as I definitely do. I want everything Microsoft out of my life forever.
That's ironic, Michael, because that's how they rose to fame, because they were open architecture. That's how they beat Apple initially. Because
No, that's not how they did it. They stole the design from IBM.
they licensed.
It's
They
ironic,
licensed
Michael.
it with
We'd like
IBM.
to-
They made the deal. But IBM. I'm sorry, IBM was open architecture. That's how they conquered the PC industry, and that's the reason Windows got a footprint on every 95% of the PCs out there.
No,
Was because-
IBM had very cheap licensing for all of their technology. That's how they were able to get it out there. I want to bring
Everybody
in this
was
comment.
able to make their own IBM clone. That's what.
Yeah,
what
but they
made
all had to
Microsoft,
license it.
and they all had but because it was open architecture, everyone was able to make cheap clones.
They
The
were
original
able to make cheap
IBM
clones
and the
because they could
Apple.
license that cheap. They could license the architecture cheaply. It wasn't open.
And what they stole was not DOS. DOS they did legitimately, and IBM licensed it from them, just as you said.
No, the
What they-
hardware was open, but the hardware required Microsoft Windows. The hardware,
Yes,
IBM
but
went
Windows-
with standard off-the-shelf components, and with their with the IBM PCs, and so everyone could clone them. And someone tried to make an Apple clone, they got sued and shut down. Remember?
You're missing my point. The thing that I'm saying that Windows grabbed onto with inappropriately, in my view, maybe illegally, I don't know. They worked collaboratively on a project with IBM called OS2, and when OS2 failed in marketing from IBM's failures, Windows took the technology and made the Windows user interface out of that.
It's a
And that's how
little
they
more
started.
complicated than that, but only a little more complicated than that. Yeah.
Well, okay, only a little, but we only have a few minutes.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to bring in this quote from Jeff before we move on. Jeff points out that without active sync on iOS, one will no longer be able to access all of the email, calendar, and contacts in a single setup. iOS will be required to use CardDev and CalDev. These are standards, and these are standards that are promoted by Google to get those sync services. And that's kind of the point here, is that Google is pushing open standards.
Exactly.
It's backing those open standards. It's going to be supporting those open standards. And it's tired of getting pushed around by a company who's got closed standards.
That's exactly right. That was a great comment.
Anyway, we're all in agreement.
Next up, Alan.
As usual.
Next up, and this is not one that I'm fully familiar on, but I want to use it to launch into something else. Sprint is buying the rest of Clearwire. Clearwire is, as I understand, it's a cell company. They've got a bandwidth in various parts of the country. And there's some questions raised, and I'm not sure if this is another one that you added, Mike, about what is this going to mean for the 4G wireless networks in the country.
I haven't read the article, but it shouldn't mean much because Sprint already owns a controlling interest in Clearwire.
Well, they owned I guess they owned 51%, and now they're going forward and buying the rest. And I don't know the answer to the question. I really posted the question for the panel because I'm unsure. I know we've talked a lot about 4G and LTE and where it's going. One of my struggles is I go around the country a lot. I go everywhere in the country, sometimes in really rural places, but even in major metropolitan areas, I have trouble finding sometimes 4G on Sprint. Not everywhere, but even in Chicago. I mean, I was in Chicago today, and I couldn't get 4G where I was, in the middle of the city. Why not? And does this make any difference to that?
The problem that Sprint has been having is that they chose to go with Clearwire, which originally decided to go with WiMAX for the 4G technology. And then effectively WiMAX technology died, and it became obvious that it just was not going to work. So Clearwire and Sprint chose to switch over to LTE as the 4G technology, which is basically, I think at this point you can say that any major carrier in any country is going to use LTE or some form of LTE as a 4G technology. And basically the problem is, short of Sprint and Clearwire being relatively small, players in the U.S. Cellular network industry, they chose one technology to go with, and then they realized that they'd have to switch over to another technology, and transitioning from WiMAX to LTE is not as quick as picking LTE initially. Had Sprint chosen LTE initially, they might, and this would probably be debatable, but they might be ahead of Verizon and AT&T are as far as the 4G rollouts are. Okay. So what does this mean for... I don't know if it means anything. Like I said, Sprint already owns a controlling interest in Clearwire before this. If I had to speculate, I would say that maybe this means that Sprint thinks that Clearwire will eventually be profitable. I don't know. They want 100% of the profits. Other than that, I don't know.
Yeah. So you don't think that it spreads 4G further throughout the country because they now have tighter control over this company? They can get more territory.
I don't know about this type of thing as far as controlling interests. If owning 49% over 51% or 100% over 51%, I would suspect that if you hold 51% of the voting, in the company, you'd be able to do whatever you want, but maybe not. Like I said, I don't understand the technicalities of percentages of ownership of a company. Yeah. But saying that, I would say that the only benefit is more profits if they become a profitable company.
Okay. So moving on, I want to skip back quickly, and Gerwin reminded me of something that I wanted to try to make, and I'm not sure if that came out. The Google Sync, which is the Active Sync stuff that we were discussing a few minutes ago, that's still going to be available for the paid apps accounts. It's just not going to be available for Gmail users.
Well, that's good.
So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
That's still respectful of the Google customers then.
Correct.
Which is good.
And this actually is a good segue into the next topic, which is that I wanted to highlight a new app that Gerwin has introduced, which enables people who are using a Chrome browser to bring in comments that are in Google Plus and to bring them into YouTube to be able to see these comments along with the YouTube comments that you can see during live Hangout broadcasts, for example. Gerwin, as we all know, is following the show this evening, and we use his comment tracker program extensively. All of the comments that you've seen show up on the screen are courtesy of work that Gerwin has done. Does a great job at bringing in your comments from YouTube into a Hangout, from comments that you make in Google Plus into a Hangout or into a standalone page if that's what you desire. This works really well. He's now adapted this and made it part of a Chrome extension so that you can follow comments in Google Plus and now show them all in one place underneath your YouTube comments. These are always interesting things. We have the link in our show notes, which I encourage people to look for, or go look for Hangout Comment Tracker, which is a page on Google Plus, and it gives you a link to where you can find this Chrome extension. And did I cover everything there, Gerwin? I hope so. I don't see any comments from him, so I will assume so. Any thoughts on this, Mike? You said you've seen it and tried it.
No, actually, I haven't tried it because I don't use YouTube that much. Myself, I'm still trying to figure out how it works. Now that they've changed the user interface to be more like Google Plus, I probably will use it more so I understand it better. But I like the whole idea. Every time I hear somebody's helping us get more integration between all of the Google products, so that they get to the users, to the uninitiated user, it feels more like one coherent set of offerings. I love that, and I thank you, Gerwin, for doing it.
It's fantastic, and he did a great job working with Moritz. Who created the Hangout Toolbox, and so they've kind of incorporated that feature in. It's fantastic, and these guys are volunteers, right?
It's amazing.
Yeah, and actually, your point about integration is a great segue into the last topic that we have this evening, and after this topic, we're going to go to our panel for the question of the week. But the last topic is that YouTube has now improved the integration with how people can make Android apps. So if you're making an Android app that wants to show a video, for example, you can now do that more directly inside your app. It's a much tighter integration, it's a smoother integration, and it's going to make for a much better user experience. And previously there were ways to do this, but they were all kind of hacky and never really had a good user experience. This is going to be improving that experience, and I think it's going to be a positive development. And we're seeing the benefits of that smooth integration throughout all of their properties.
We're getting a lot of positive comments about the new YouTube user interface in general, right? People love the commenting and stuff. What do you think? Is it better?
I don't know. I mean, I was not a big YouTube user before. Like Mike, I've been using it more and more now that it's closely tied to Google Plus, more closely tied to Google Plus. I think there are still crucial elements that will just, tip me over the edge to say, hey, this has really, really done it for me. I know that there are a lot of people who really want to see more, not just integration, but making it better and more convenient to view things. Right now, they're still focusing a lot on the producer side. I'm curious to see how they can improve the user side as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so are we good on that?
I think we are good on that. We're good on our topics for the week. Monica, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm just more curious to see the tie-in between, they're really good at tying, they're not good at, bringing YouTube viewers to view Hangouts. They're good at, do you know what I'm saying? It seems to go one way.
Yeah, I agree, Monica.
You mean you think
they
it's
really
bringing
need
more?
to.
You think it's bringing more Google Plus users to YouTube than YouTube users to Google Plus?
Yeah, definitely. I've heard a lot more Google Plus people say, oh, I've discovered YouTube now that I've started using Google Plus, but I don't hear YouTubers going yeah, I discovered Google Plus. And it's why is that? Bring it the other way.
I mean, in the same way, Monica, the way, well, in fact, I think this disappeared. You used to be able to have a comment in your stream and click a Hangout button on that comment to start a Hangout from there. You can't do that anymore as far as I can see. And they need something like that. I want that back in the stream just for anyone who's listening. And
well, I think because it wasn't effective, because people were entering empty Hangouts and then they go, this isn't effective.
Monica, it's interesting you say that, because I know our experience on the show has been we've picked up followers from YouTube that didn't know that we existed on Google Plus. there were times that we would get people saying, "This is a live show. How are you doing this? What are you doing?" And that would then bring them from YouTube into Google+.
Right.
We've got a number of people doing that.
Right.
Now, is that a representative sample? I'm not saying that it is. It's anecdotal.
Have they stuck around though? Like, are any of you watching? Like, anybody watching? Have you stuck around, or like, were you not from here originally?
I know that several of the people who are now following me were people that we picked up and who I interact with really somewhat regularly, are people that we picked up from YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
I mean, again, it's anecdotal. I don't have numbers, so you may be right that more people are going in the other direction, but I don't think it's totally zero.
Well, there's just things that they could do, though, to make it more obvious and simpler to drive traffic from YouTube to Google+, I think. If you wanted to, launch directly go back directly from the YouTube channel to the page that's associated with it, for example, or the profile that's associated with it in Google+, I don't think you can do that.
Well, let me see. I'm looking at.
In any event,
I don't know if you're right.
Obvious enough to me, so I want to see it be seamless, that people obviously know that Google is YouTube, YouTube is Google, and Google is Google+.
Nope, I think you make a valid point there. Okay, I think I think we're ready to move on to our final question of the evening. Dan, you want to introduce it? Is Dan even sitting in the seat? Because I can't see anything at the moment.
There he is.
There he is.
I was multitasking. Apologies. Let me hit lap. Okay. What we want to do is I've created a new name, an old name, but let's call it the Soapbox, because at the end of the show I like to let each panelist, and I'll start with Sarik if you're still there, if you want to turn your camera on. If not, I'll go with Pam, and then we'll pick up Sarik in a minute. But basically, not necessarily a tech topic or Google Plus topic, but just whatever was interesting this week that you want to talk about briefly and give your view on. So let's start with Pam. Whatever what was the most interesting thing?
Great, 5 seconds. 5 second warning.
I'm famous for those.
Prepared for this. It's Christmas. I it just I have nothing.
Pam, could you recite the Declaration of Independence for us? Preferably in Latin.
You don't have to go too far.
Pam, am I allowed to?
I'm drunk.
I got a funny gift from you. Am I allowed to reveal it? Or
of course you are.
Okay, it was. I wish I had it handy, but it's I'm not sure where it is, but it's.
Is it green or snot yellow?
I think it's green. It's a. What's it?
Common cold.
It's the.
Common cold.
Contagious disease stress ball, or something. And
Oh,
I'll show it
great.
next week. I'll hold it
Alan's
up.
got one.
It's what Alan has.
Okay. Oh, okay. Let's go to Alan. Yeah. Show
I don't know how well you
hold
can
it
see
still
or
there.
hear this.
Hold it
Hold it
still for a
still.
sec so we can see. Yeah. It's.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's cool.
And it makes noise. See?
Do you have any other accessories that make noise, Pam? All right.
We'll be discussing that in the after party.
That's for after the show,
Yeah,
Dan.
After the show, once we're not broadcasting live. Okay. Go ahead.
So wait. So it's because my job used to be working with infectious diseases. I used to actually grow viruses and plate them on little slides for use in diagnostics, and so I have grown many respiratory viruses. So that's just something for you to remember me by.
That's awesome.
Oh.
I appreciate the infectious disease stress ball, as do all of the recipients. Thank you so
Right.
much, and Amazon appreciates it. All right, Mr. Michael Ellis, what was something interesting, or what do you want to talk about in our closing moments here?
Well, I have two things, I guess. I've had such a great few months doing this program with you guys. I always learn a bunch of stuff. It's always fun. But I'm so impressed with the technology that I've been introduced to through Google Plus and YouTube. This week I did a recording of a business meeting where some of our coworkers in Germany were teaching us how to do something in SAP. And they use an internal Microsoft communicator program between the two locations. I started up a hangout on air from the computer we were using on our end, shared the screen, and I captured the entire session, the dialogue back and forth with all the questions, everything that they showed us in SAP. It was phenomenal, and it was completely free, and it worked flawlessly. I was really thrilled. So that was point one, very exciting stuff for me. And the second thing is, it's Christmas, and I wanted to tell everybody that it's really been great to get to know you, but I am very blessed this year. It's been a good year for recovering a lot of disasters in my world, and you guys were not a small part of that. Last few months have been really great. So thank you, and Merry Christmas.
And we appreciate
Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah, you're a good guy, and we love the sales and the stuff you bring to the show. You're a wonderful addition. So
not very techy.
That's okay. We have a lot of that on Google Plus. It's good to bring in but I think you're a little more techie than you let on. Monica, what's the big thing you were thinking about this week?
So and not many people know this, but I write from time to time, and I have just started a mystery novel. And so I'm doing that.
What's
Nice.
any teasers?
Who done it?
The butler.
Well, I
in the
can't tell
kitchen.
you who done it.
Okay. Gonna make us buy the
but,
book like Guy.
Yeah, I'll make you buy the book.
Do you write like as stuff comes to you, or do you have the whole outline done ahead of time, and then you write your book?
Actually, ever since I was young, I always have been interested in like creating mystery puzzles. I used to do it when my parents would make me wash the dishes, and it would be really boring, so I would just create mysteries in my mind. And so, anyway, this one actually came to me while I was sleeping actually. And so I woke up in the middle of the night and I wrote the solution to this one down. And it does involve a murder. That's the only clue I'll give you.
As far as the technical process, though, I saw an interview with John Grisham, because I've always been I'm a writer, as you know, but I've never done a novel-length thing, mainly because of my ADHD. That's why I was so excited about the whole Kindle single concept, where there are short articles, 600 to 800 words. There are like feature magazine articles, which could go a few thousand words, and there's a novel, which could be a couple 100,000 words, right, or more, if you're, and the Kindle single is like a $2 product that is sort of in between the feature length, in-depth Vanity Fair type length piece and a novel, and it's gotten some traction. So sort of like the best example I can think of a Kindle single length is at the Newsweek used to do those long analysis of the presidential campaigns, where they would sort of have someone embedded and they would agree not to write any of it until after the election was over. But you got a lot of introspective, and they just some guys from Politico just put one out. I bought it. I'm reading it now. It's gripping. But when you are, if you're writing a book, a Kindle single or a novel or whatever, John Grisham said he plots the whole thing out. He knows everything that's happening before he writes the actual first piece of prose. He kind of outlines the whole thing. Do you do that, or do you kind of do like a, what's the word? The flow, the conscious. I forget the word.
Stream of consciousness.
Stream of consciousness, where you kind of just like do that. What actual technical process do you use?
Well, before I preferred to plot it out pretty heavily, and I think with mystery writing that's a lot more important, because you really, otherwise you have to plant your red herrings and that sort of thing. And actually, you know, a lot of the classic in the old school mystery writers, the like Agatha Christie's novels were actually pretty short. Like some of them were only basically past like 70,000 words, which would not really sell. Like they're really, really thin. If you actually go pick them up, she basically, that's how she managed to write so many of them.
They were pulp fiction, though, right? They were, you know, low price, but
Yeah, they sold
rapid.
for like a quarter at the time.
That's in our budget, especially if you're buying milk.
Yeah.
Apparently, milk's going up. Awesome. Well, congratulations. We can't wait to, you know, we'll have to review it on the program.
Well, tell me when I finish it.
Anthony in Rochester, home of Kodak Inc.
Kodak Inc.
An unfortunate pun. So what was the most interesting thing that occupied your mind this last week?
I don't know. I don't have anything this week.
Anthony loves being put on the spot. So what's the deal with the patent thing? What's the general? How many people still work for Kodak in Rochester, and what's the general? It's got to be kind of, because we went through a similar thing here. We had Aftex Fibers, which was shut down by the government because they were polluting. It's a different thing. Kodak was a victim of changing technology. But
Well,
what's
they,
the general, you know?
I guess about to sell the patents for $525 million to a group of companies, which I was actually surprised. The list of the companies. Originally, it kept on being reported as Apple and Google, but it also includes those two companies, but also Research in Motion, Facebook, Microsoft, Samsung, Adobe, HTC, Fujifilm, which is kind of ironic, and I'm actually not even sure how to pronounce this one, but Huey, or however you say their name, and then Shutterfly and Amazon Fulfillment Services.
It's a fire sale, right? I mean,
the group was a lot larger than originally. I think originally anyone realized, but so like I continuously say, I think Kodak's going to get out of this successfully, and it's.
My only request, as I said earlier, was as long as I can get inkjet cartridges for my.
And I'm keep on telling you that it's not going to happen. In fact, in this, I can't find. There it is. One of the things that they had to do in order to exit bankruptcy was this is one of the bullets in the article is focus on profitable operations by getting out of such businesses, and it specifically says digital cameras and desktop inkjet printers. So you are
SOL
down the river without a paddle. So
SOL, as Pam would say. I'm picking on Pam because she's such a easy victim tonight, albeit self-imposed. Okay, we love Pam. We love all you guys. And Alan, who first joined our group long ago because he wanted to argue with me, which I love.
And now we're completely in agreement on so many things. I'm so glad you always see it my way now, Dan.
It's a true bromance now. What was something really interesting, or whatever you want to talk about?
I think the interesting thing for me, the interesting thing for me is something that that kind of started creeping out on several prominent Googlers' pages. One of the guys from Niantic Labs, who's doing Ingress and who did the field trip program, made a comment that he was going to be fitted for a pair of Google Glass today, and he immediately got 500 comments on it. And I thought this was kind of interesting, but then I started seeing there were a couple of Googlers who were saying, yeah, I got Glass within the past week, and here are some pictures I've taken of it. and more people inside Google are talking about how they're using it. And I thought this was interesting that they've been pretty quiet for a few months, and now suddenly we're seeing a lot of Googlers coming up with it. We're seeing talk about it more. So I'm
oh yeah.
I'm curious to see where this is going. What is that thought, Monica?
Yeah, I must have. I don't want to get anyone in trouble or anything, but I, first saw that sort of thing a long time ago. I think that's not a big secret. And if you think about it, they must have been testing them on their people for a long time.
Oh, sure they have.
If they showed up in the fashion show and New York Fashion Week back in fall, if they gave them to a fashion model in fall, when do you think a Googler first got a hold of them? I mean...
Oh, no. We know that there are plenty of Googlers who are been getting them. But I know that when I was at I.O., there were Googlers who were saying, okay, you're offering it to people outside at some point next year. When do we get our hands on it?
Right.
And it looks like the when do we get our hands on it is this week. Because it's not just that it's one or two people. It's that a whole bunch of people very suddenly have been getting it.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they're not dumb enough to post a lot of pictures.
Well, I mean, it's intent. They've been saying, I've been asked to, I've gotten my Google Glass, and it's, I've been asked to take pictures, and here are some pictures that I've taken with it. So it's apparently an open. It's open. It's public that they're getting it. So I don't know. We'll see where what's happening. It sounds like they're beginning to ramp up, and I think that's exciting. I think that's going to be good that they're starting to ramp up.
But he's still not giving up his Nexus Q.
You will get my Nexus Q when it's the end of the world.
When you pry it from my cold, dead fingers.
Right.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
One of the YouTube commenters wants to know what software you use for the show.
I saw that. I was looking at Gerwin's Epic standalone version of the app. There are two versions. Remember, there's the standalone version and there's the in Hangout version. I'm going to do a video, and I'm actually thinking about doing a Kindle single about how to host a Hangout show. What I'm using I'm using Wirecast. There are other ways to do it. Leo Laporte uses the TriCaster, which is $3,000 and up. I use Wirecast, which is sort of a software switcher, and I'm running two different Hangouts. My solution is about a $20,000 solution, but you could do this for a lot less. And that's how I'm doing this. And then I have a locally recorded version, which is a 480p instead of the 320p that goes out on the Hangout. But I am going to do a video of the actual setup that we use, and I've done a few. If you look up McDermott Wirecast setup or something like that in YouTube, you'll find a couple videos I've done. One we had Mike Elgin standing by and stuff like that. But yeah, it's exciting. You can create your own show, and it can look like CNN. And as long as you have good content and a good panel behind you, then it'll take off. Before I close, or Anthony, you have a comment or from one of the folks?
No, that's the comment that you were just answering.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I just want to say it's the Christmas season or Hanukkah or whatever. There's thousands of different philosophies, but this is a social layer or social network, whatever. But as Anthony pointed out, we've met folks on Google Plus, and everyone in the panel here, we're all friends. I've met Sarik in person. I haven't met everybody, and it'd be great to one day. But you're the best of friends, and I love it. And that's why someone said, "Why do you do this?" There's no Craig was busting up. There's no monetization.
Hey,
yeah.
Dan,
yes,
you'd send me a plane ticket anytime.
All right, you got it. But I do this to be able to interact with people. And locally, it's hard to find people I can talk to on this level about stuff. And the viewers, folks like George Cozy and John Jensen and, Michael Daniels and all these folks. We love you guys so much, and we appreciate you're a big part of the show, because you are in the conversation with us, and that's what this is about. We're not here to get our face on camera or anything like that. We're here because we want to have this debate, and this is real, it's live, and we love it, and that's why we all do it, and we give up, so many I mean, there's many things we could be doing on Friday night other than this, but I just, as we get into, Christmas and Hanukkah and stuff, and we have time with our families, our second family is you on Google Plus, who watch and comment and interact with us and are part of our extended family. So I want to thank you so much. This is like a year and a half or more, right? So anyway, I just I want to say a special thank you for the whole panel, and I want to wish all of you a wonderful end of 2012. And it's been a rough last week. This week's been better, and it'll keep getting better. So in closing, just I want to wish everybody a very wonderful Google Plus week.